Thank you. We'll still remain standing for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. We want to acknowledge that we are on the land traditionally occupied by the indigenous people. They continue to care for this land. They continue to shape the town of New Tecumseth, and we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they're still relevant today. Thank you. I'll go to the clerk who items that are Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. D-1, Robert Chicken Dance, Committee of the Whole Meeting Report dated February 1st, 2021. Item DW52, Application for Zoning Bylaw Amendment. Walton Central Residential Development Corporation, care of Robert Chicken Dance, Block 142 on Plan 51M 1053, West Country Subdivision, Community of Eden. File number DEV 396. This item will require unanimous vote of council to be added.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, you've heard the clerk read out the item. All in favor of allowing Mr. Chicken Dance to speak? Unanimous. Thank you. Motion then move in second or be resolved that the agenda for the council meeting held on March 1st, 2021 be continued as confirmed as amendment. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Foster and Councillor Noel, all in favor? Thank you. Adoption of the council minutes. Be resolved that the minutes of the council meeting dated February 1st, 2021 be adopted and circulated. And further, that the minutes of the special council meeting dated February 1st, 2021 be adopted and circulated. Mover and a seconder, please. Questions, Councillor Jebb?
Oh, I thought we were put it up to make the motion. I will move.
Thank you. And Councillor Lacey, any questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any?
I had a question.
Thank you. I'll go back to the clerk to identify items for separate discussion and the reasons thereof. Madam Clerk. Oh, thank you. At this time, does anyone have a conflict of community of items tonight in the council meeting? Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. CW31, the restaurant patio program, as I'm employed by a local restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Deputy Mayor on CS1. Do you have a conflict?
Oh, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. And Councillor McClellan, do you have a conflict on the same one?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I missed that one. CS1.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Your Worship, Councillor Sainsbury had put up a card before you moved on from the adoption of the council minutes. I don't know if there's a way to go back and address that, but there was a question that she had.
Okay, we'll handle this and then we'll go back. Anybody else with a conflict of interest? And as the item comes up, Councillor Sainsbury, you had a question in regards to the minute?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Perhaps through you to the clerk. In the minutes of February 1, item 2021-30, which is item 5.2, it was related to the community signage for the dental office, and we were to have a picture for tonight, March 1 meeting at council, but I didn't see it in our agenda. So will it come up on the screen or do we have to pull that?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one moment. I'm just looking at which one we were talking about here. It does not look like there was a report put on the agenda for tonight with regards to this item.
So a supplementary, Your Worship?
Councillor Sainsbury, go ahead.
Yes, I believe that Councillor Harrison McIntyre had asked that we have photographs taken. They be on tonight's agenda. So could we ask that they do come perhaps at the next committee of the whole meeting on March 15? Or the council meeting, sorry, because this is a council meeting. Or it can just be sent to us. We do need to see it.
Go do. The clerk's nodding here.
If council would like it sent, we can do that.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison, for bringing that forward. You guys are just little squares tonight. There's so many. All right, I'll go to clerk to identify items for separate discussion and reasons thereof.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. We have C-1, Airden Burles, Integrity Commissioner, report on Code of Conduct Complaint 2020-06 as correspondent. C-2, Airden Burles, Integrity Commissioner, report on Municipal Conflict of Interest Act application 2020-09 correspondent. C-3, County of Cinco meeting minutes correspondent. CW 3-1, temporary restaurant patios program. Councilor McClellan has a pecuniary interest. And we have C-S-1, verbal report of the town solicitor closed, town of New Tecumseth aptitude of salary. Councilor McClellan and Deputy Mayor Norcross, conflict of interest. And then item 3, verbal report of the CEO, update on COVID-19.
Good, thanks, Madam Clerk. This time I'll go to council to identify items for separate discussion. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. CW56 for a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Next one, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. I realized that CW3 has already been pulled by Councilor McClellan, but I have a comment. I'd like to speak to that as well, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Councillor Jeff.
I'm going to ask for CW52 as Mr. Schickenance will be speaking. So I think we should pull that one as well. And the others have already been pulled.
Good, thank you. Councillor Sainsbury, I think I saw your card up.
Yes, the C-1 is pulled. Or is that the integrity commissioner who's going to speak to these issues?
If requested, yeah. Would you want to pull it? Councillor Sainsbury, you want CW1 pulled?
I thought Councillor Foster pulled it. Perhaps I was confused.
Not yet. Councillor Foster?
Just to clarify, it was pulled as an item for separate discussion by the clerk.
Thank you.
C1.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll go to the clerk to summarize all items for separate discussion. Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. C-1, C-2, C-3, CW31, CW52, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Walton Simple Residential Development Corporation, care of Robert Chickendance, Block 142, Plan 51M 1053, West Country Subdivision, Community of Bean, file number DEV 396, CW56, Board of Consultancy, Newtown Administration Center, 25 Elder Street, CS1 and 3.
Good. Be resolved that the items CW1, CW5 on the Committee of the Whole meeting report dated February 1st, 2021, with the exceptions of those items identified for separate discussions, be approved and the recommendation therein be adopted. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Beatty and Councillor Sainsbury, all in favor? Carried, thank you. CW1, or I'm sorry, C-1. And who wishes to, the Councillor Foster, did you wish to speak on that one? Okay, look for a mover.
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor Milne. Be it resolved that the report of the Integrity Commissioner on Code of Conduct Complaint 2020-06 dated February 23rd, 2021 be received. And further, that as a result of the findings and recommendations set out in the Integrity Commissioner report on Complaint 2020-06, the Council of the Town of New Tecumseth formally censures Councillor McClellan for her contraventions of the Code of Conduct. And I'd like this as a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple of questions through you to the Integrity Commissioner. On page 33 of our agenda, it says that there is, to formally censure a councillor, a penalty that is statutorily authorized. And I guess my question is, what are the authorized penalties?
Okay, just before we go there, I'll go to the clerk. Is Mr. Camp and Mr. Mascara in the council?
Thank you, Your Worship. They are both in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mascara, could you answer the question from Councillor Harrison McIntyre, please?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The statutory penalties that are authorized under the Municipal Act and also under your Code of Conduct are two. There's a reprimand and there's a suspension of pay for up to 90 days. The law has also recognized that certain remedial measures or corrective actions that are not punitive in nature may also be imposed by a council if it deems it appropriate. But those are the two penalties, Councillor Harrison McIntyre, a reprimand or a suspension of pay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
and is there, again, through you, Your Worship, reprimand is that asking for an apology, or are there examples of what a reprimand is?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Harrison McIntyre, a reprimand is a censure. It's a statement by council that it doesn't appreciate the conduct and basically says that it disavows and denounces the action. That's essentially what a reprimand is. An apology, on the other hand, would be more in the nature of a remedial measure or a corrective action that seeks to repair the harm that's been done. An apology is probably the best known of any kind of remedial measure that could be imposed.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions?
Your Worship, I do have a comment, though.
Councillor Harrison McIntyre, go ahead.
I think in order for there to be clarity on this issue and for us to move forward and to heal, I think it's essential that we look to who the harm was done to, who perpetrated the harm, what they did, and that they apologize for it in a public format that is readily acceptable to all. So as the offense was done on Facebook, that might be one place, but I also think that council would be an appropriate place for an apology to be done, because that's also where the offense was directed, and perhaps published in media so that it could be part of the public record.
Okay. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor Milnes. Through you to Mr. Mascaron. With respect to understanding what a censure is, as you eloquently put, a censure, it speaks very strongly to the overall discontentment of this council with what you deem to be inappropriate behavior. I believe, if I read the Municipal Act correctly, a censure cannot happen twice, and it would be fairly well recognized by somebody who was censured that if their behavior continued and you were forced to make a second decision, that at that point in time, much stricter punitive measures would be appropriate. But at this particular time, a censure should speak loud and clear as to the discontentment of this council. Is that not fair?
Mr. Mascaron?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Foster. I'm not aware, Councillor, of the reference that you make to two censures. I don't know where that it comes from. I'm not familiar with that in the Municipal Act. However, I think what you were speaking of was the sense of escalating measures should there be repeat contraventions of the Act. So a progressive enforcement. I think at the end of the report, we do caution Councillor McClelland to be aware of her responsibilities under the code. And I suppose that goes partway to saying, this is a warning. In total, we looked at the matter, and Mr. Mayor, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Councillor McClelland has an opportunity to make submissions, and I understand her legal counsel is here, and to afford her procedural fairness, her counsel should be given an opportunity to make submissions on behalf of Councillor McClelland on this matter. But to your point, Councillor Foster, there is that element of progressive enforcement and escalating potentially escalating penalties should future contraventions so warrant it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mascaron. And I definitely will allow Mr. Kemp to speak to Councillor Jebb.
Thank you. Question through to Mr. Mascaron. Good evening, Mr. Mascaron. The censure, does that apply to the committees that Councillor McClelland has been appointed to, as well as the council? Does it apply to like the different committees that she is appointed to on behalf of council?
Mr. Mascaron?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jebb, I'm not sure what you're asking. It applies to her actions under the Code of Conduct, and she's a member of the council. So I suppose if you're asking what happens if there is another repeat of this conduct at a committee meeting, and the answer would be yes, it would be taken into account, and that would certainly factor into a future matter.
Okay. Supplementary, Councillor Jebb?
Just to clarify, sitting on the library board or the heritage committee or whatever other committees, that's what I was referring to. So it would still apply to that as well?
Through you,
Mr.
Mr. Mayor, yes, it would apply to any council matter, any committee of council, or any local board of the council. I don't think the library board is a board that's subject to your code of conduct. I believe it's excluded under the Municipal Act, as is the police service board, and I think 4 or 5 other ones.
Thank you. Councilor McLeod, did you wish to speak, or did you wish your solicitor to speak first and you speak last? It's up to you, sir. Ma'am.
Thank you, Worship. No, I think we're okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kemp, did you wish to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It was not my intention, unless necessary and at the conclusion of debate, so not at this time. I do apologize for any background noise. I have a very old dog at home and the heavy breathing is not my own.
Excuse me. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Harrison McIntyre.
So, Your Worship, it seems like Councillor Foster put a motion on the table, and I would ask if he would be amenable to adding on the request for an apology.
Councilor Foster, would you amend your motion, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Milne, through you to Councillor Harrison McIntyre. I put a lot of thought and study into that that motion, and I'd like the motion to stand the way it sits. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for the motion?
Your Worship, can he read it again, please?
Definitely.
Would you like me to read the motion again? I'm sorry, is that what you want?
Councilor Foster, read the motion.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the report of the Integrity Commissioner on Code of Conduct Complaint 2020-06 dated February 23rd, 2021 be received. And further, that as a result of the findings and recommendations set out in the Integrity Commissioner report on Complaint 2020-06, the Council of the Town of New Tecumseth formally censures Councillor McClellan for her contraventions of the Code of Conduct.
Yep. And a seconder? Councillor Noyle. Any further discussion? I believe Councillor Foster asked for a recorded vote. Councillor Foster?
Well, I believe I have the last word on this.
You definitely do.
If I do, then I'll yield to anybody else who'd like to speak at this time, but I would reserve the right for the last word, please.
Councillor Jeff?
I think Councillor Harrison McIntyre had talked about a recorded apology in our minutes, and I'll record on our Facebook page or wherever. I'm not sure where you were asking to have that. In a second motion.
Councillor Jeb? Councillor Jeb?
Yes.
You were totally cut out. We didn't hear you at all.
Oh, sorry. Well, it could be the wind and the internet. Councillor Harrison McIntyre had said about having it written, recorded publicly, and also an apology on Facebook. Councillor Harrison McIntyre, can you repeat that again? And if we could add that on to this motion, or would we need a second motion?
Councillor Foster heard what Councillor Harrison McIntyre asked for, and he's quite satisfied with his own motion without adding anything to it. Councillor Foster, go ahead. Oh, sorry, there's Councillor Thansbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Jeb. Can it be a second motion with Councillor Jeb as mover and a seconder? If it doesn't carry, that's fine, but is that possible?
If it doesn't carry, yes, we can go to Councillor Jeb's motion.
Your Worship,
Councillor Jeff,
Worship. I agree with Councillor Foster's motion, but I also agree with Councillor Harrison McIntyre. I'm asking, can we make a second motion with the wording from Councillor Harrison McIntyre?
so you just want to amend the motion?
No.
No,
No.
No,
Okay,
what's two motions?
it's
Two
two
motions.
motions.
I'm going to ask Mr. Mascara. You know, sir, in 32 years, I've never had to do this. Never had to sit in front of my council to chastise one of my councillors. So I'm totally new and I want to be done right. Mr. Mascara, do you think that I should, as the mayor, to allow two motions regards to the one complaint?
Well, through Mr. Mayor, to you, the matter is real. It's really a procedural question that you're asking. I think you can allow the two motions. I don't think that there's any issue with that. If the first motion doesn't go ahead, then you can proceed to the second one. I believe that's procedurally permitted under the rules. So I think you could permit that.
Yeah, thank you. We'll deal with Councillor Foster. Do we have a seconder?
I believe I second Councillor Foster's motion.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion? Goodbye. Opposed? Motion doesn't carry. I'm sorry, motion does carry. Councillor Foster.
I did ask for this to be recorded. Is that correct?
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. So all those in favor, please raise your card of the motion. Okay, and those opposed, please raise your card. Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Motion carried.
Councillor Harrison McIntyre, did you want to add a motion?
Sorry, Your Worship, I thought that motion passed. Are you saying that it didn't pass?
So through Your Worship, I believe we just voted on the first motion, which was Councillor Foster's.
Mm-hmm.
And now if Councillor Harrison McIntyre, if you'd like to put your second motion forward, then we can vote on that one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So again, this is all in the spirit of moving forward and healing from the past. I think that it's essential that we identify who the harm was done to, who perpetrated the damage, and they need to apologize for it. And I would suggest that be done in a public forum. Again, something that's acceptable to all. I put forward that it be done on the channels that it was broadcast out onto, which is Facebook. And I think that there was 3 different Facebook sites that Councillor McCullen posted onto. The Tottenham Community Soapbox, Tottenham and New Tecumseh Community Group, and Save the Beaten Woods. And then as well, an apology to council, because as it states in the report, that, you know, this is who the harm was done to. There was, and then finally that it be published in the media, I would say in a paper, because then it can become part of the public record.
You have a second?
But again, those are just suggestions. Maybe other people have other areas that they would recommend.
First of all, do we have a seconder on the motion? Councillor Jett, okay. Questions on the motion? Councillor Sainsbury?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like yourself, in 25 years, I've never had to go through this particular type of format. Others, but not this one. My concern is that once you run and take your oath of office and work for all the taxpayers of the town of New Tecumseh, you are, as a mayor, are the spokesperson for council. And I don't think Facebook is a proper forum after council has voted on issues. And if you don't agree, that's fine. But I really think that We have you as spokesperson. We have Tatiana Milne as our communications officer. We have our website. We have many ways the public can find out what we did, what we said, and it's even with Rogers Cable, I think, for up to 5 years on your computer. So I don't think that we need to be repeating it openly on Facebook. If you want to do it with your private friends, I suppose that's allowed under freedom of whatever. But I am disappointed that this is the format that's being used. And when we don't do Facebook, we can't defend ourselves. So that's what I think is inappropriate with this particular, I guess it's a social media platform. Thank you.
Councillor McClellan. You're on mute, Councillor McClellan.
Sorry, just to clarify with Mr. Mascaron, when he was asked about the double motion, he did say the second motion could go through if the first one fails. So I don't know if he maybe could clarify that just to make sure we're not running into any procedural issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mascaron.
Yes, I maybe I misunderstood it, but I thought that the point was that if the first motion failed, then Councillor Harrison McIntyre wanted to bring on the second motion. It looks like now you voted for the first motion and now you want to continue with the second one. I still think that's procedurally permitted. It wasn't what I thought that you had originally intended.
Thank you. Councillor Jebb and then Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just think that the apology should be in the same place as where the accident happened, which is on the Facebook, but as well, it should be recorded in our minutes and also as Councillor Harrison McIntyre in our local papers as well, so that it is public record and it is there. And it would be in our minutes.
Okay. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Through you to Mr. Mascaron. Just in the interest of understanding, I've done a fair bit of reading in preparation for this. What are the authoritative limits of our ability to, say, for example, this motion passes? What are the limits of this council if what is decided in a motion, the individual, Councillor McClellan, decides not to abide? Where do we stand? So I guess what I'm saying is there any teeth to a motion like this, and is there any precedent in order to allow this, or what authority do we have to enforce this, or is it not enforceable?
Mascaron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's actually a very good question that's been grappled with over and over again. Apologies are often requested, and sometimes they're not provided. Sometimes a full apology is provided. Often, what happens is if there is no sincere apology that is provided, that itself forms the basis of a complaint and a possible report by the integrity commissioner with a recommendation. So I can't tell you, Councillor Foster, what I would do, because I don't know what may happen, so I can't speculate on that. But in general, what typically happens is when I write a report and I may recommend an apology as a remedial measure, I typically include in the report that I remain seized of the matter, and therefore I can look into it, and I generally ask that the apology be provided within a certain period of time. So there's not a question of, well, I will apologize, but I'll apologize later. So that's not been worked into the report because I did not recommend that. So in general, I think what would happen is there would be an opportunity for council to enforce it through a request to me to look back into it, or a complaint that's filed by somebody.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, and with all due respect to the wordy answer, all due respect, Mr. Mascaron, I would simply ask is that your report specifically stated we should formally censure, which the motion that I put forward was a direct result of the findings and recommendations. If we were to proceed with a different motion, is it safe to say we're walking into uncharted waters with no guarantee of a result? Is that a fair assessment?
Mr. Mascara?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Foster, I am an investigator and I make findings and I report. It's council's decision, and I've often said this. You don't have to accept my recommendations. It's what council would like to do. Now, you have a finding in an investigation report that there were contraventions. That then engages the penalty provision in the Municipal Act that then leaves it open to council as to what council would like to impose. I've given you my recommendation. I don't think it would be necessarily uncharted waters, Councillor Foster, because a council, I don't dictate to council what it is to impose. That's council's will, and council can make its own decision. I've just provided my recommendations based on my view, my findings, and I guess the experience I bring to this. I don't know what more I can say to give you some solace or to give you some worry. It's council's decision to make.
Thank you.
You're very clear in your answer. Thank you kindly.
Okay, Mr. Kemp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for Mr. Mascaron through you. Is there any precedent or authority that Mr. Mascaron is aware of where a vote has been taken on a recommendation made by the Integrity Commissioner, and then a further vote is requested by certain members of council who are not satisfied with the outcome of the first vote? Because my concern is that this is procedurally unfair to Councillor McClellan, and it is, in my view, a further example or illustration of the weaponization of the office of the Integrity Commissioner against an individual member of council.
Mr. Mascara?
Now, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to refuse to answer the question. I'll tell you why. Mr. Kemp is here to speak on behalf of Councillor McClellan. He can make submissions. He is now asking questions of me, which only council can ask. And council can ask me questions about recommendations. This is not a cross-examination. And I'm sorry, I'm going to refuse to answer it. I'm going to refuse to answer it on the basis that the report says what it says, and council can ask me questions. This is not an opportunity for a lawyer to stand up and start questioning what my answers to council are.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, my attempt here is for us to move forward as a council and not to be divisive. I looked back at I looked for other precedents in other municipalities where there's been a contravention and the actions that have been taken in other municipalities. So there's been suspended pay for 1 month in Tay Valley in 2018. Rocky View County in 2019 removed the councillor from committees and boards, and a letter of apology was asked for and provided. In Vaughan in 2015, 3 months pay was suspended. And Ryerson Township in 2020, the member was prohibited from being a member of any board as a member of council for 1 year upon review. So I wasn't looking for anything hugely punitive. I was looking to really just have a reconciliation and an opportunity for us to move forward as a council.
Thank you.
And I apologize for the confusion of the two motions. I absolutely support what Councillor Foster had put forward before. I had asked for this to be added, but that it wasn't something that was agreed upon. But I really do feel that as a council, we deserve to be to have some reconciliation, and this is how I think that it would be best served.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I think I am going to call a point of order on this. I'm not sure how we can decide on an issue and then continue to speak about that issue when there was a recorded vote of council. I mean, in every other issue that we bring forward, once there's a vote and or a recorded vote of council, we can't speak about that issue again for another 4 meeting cycles. So I'm not sure how we can continue to speak about this and just, I mean, there could very well be another motion after Councillor Harrison McIntyre's motion. We could do this all night. I just want to make sure that this isn't a procedural issue. I've never seen this happen before, because there's been many votes in my experience that I would have continued putting motions on the floor if I'd known that we could do that. So I think we need to check the procedure of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McClellan. And that was my reasoning at the beginning. Could we do another motion? That's why I got it clarified by Mr. Mascarin, who told me that I could put another motion on the floor. So your point of order is not valid. Another question, Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Mascarin. Is the cost of this report and this whole exercise that we've gone through with several reports, is that public knowledge? Because it's a legal opinion?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sainsbury, it certainly could be public knowledge. I didn't think that question would be asked. I know occasionally when I go to other municipalities, they would like to know on the spot how much of this cost, and I do prepare a short outline so I know approximately what the cost is. I'm really sorry, I don't know what it is, but I'd be pleased to provide it to the municipality as a global figure as to essentially what the approximate cost of this entire investigation and the report and my presence this evening. But I don't know what it is right now, Councillor Sainsbury.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm going to allow one more.
Supplementary, Your Worship.
Oh,
The
supplementary.
reason I asked that is because the cost of the issue that got all of this started in the first place was a concern to the councillor who has been reprimanded. So I just want to know the whole cost of the whole exercise, and that we must be more careful in the future. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've had a great discussion. The Deputy Mayor, you haven't spoken about it. I'll let you go ahead and then we're going to call the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. All I was going to say is I think this has been debated enough, and I was going to request that you call the vote. It's time to move on. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, would you read the motion, please?
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if I got the 3 Facebook sites correct, but Councillor Harrison McIntyre can assist. That Councillor McClellan be required to apologize in a public forum with regard to contraventions of the Code of Conduct and on channels that the contraventions were broadcasted, being the Bean Soapbox, Tonham and New Tecumseth community page, and the Bean Woods Facebook pages. And further, that an apology be made to council as a whole and be published within the local paper servicing the town of New Tecumseth.
Councillor Harrison McIntyre, last question. Did you want a recorded vote?
Sure.
Okay.
We didn't call it up front.
The date on it? Councillor Harrison McIntyre, when did you?
14 days.
Okay, so through Your Worship, and further that such apologies be made within 14 days of the date of this council meeting.
And Councillor Harrison requested that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So all those in favor of the motion, please raise your card. Just one moment here. Sainsbury, and I'm sorry, I've got Jeff Sainsbury, Councillor Harrison McIntyre, Councillor Roy, and who was the other? Were there any others? Councillor Lacey. Okay, and
Did you get Beatty too?
Beatty. No, there we go. It's hard with the camera.
Yeah,
With
it's too small.
computer screen. Okay, and those opposed, please raise your card. Okay. Norcross and Foster. Okay, through your worship, the motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next item is BW2. Be it resolved that the report of the Integrity Commissioner dated 2020-09 dated February 23rd, 2021 be received, and third that the deputation of John McCarron, the Integrity Commissioner, be received. Mover and seconder. Councillor Sainsbury and Councillor Jebb, all in favor? Carried, thank you. C3, I'm sorry.
Your worship, I believe Councillor Beatty wanted to speak to that before the motion was called
Oh, okay.
or
Councillor
finalized.
Beatty? Councillor Beatty?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just one question through you to Mr. Mascaron. Mr. Mascaron, thanks for joining us tonight. Quick question. Whose responsibility is it to call a conflict of interest? Is it the member of council's?
Mr. Mascaron?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Beatty. Yes, it's the obligation of the member of council. It's a personal obligation. It's as you probably know, and that you probably are very aware, Councillor Beatty, when you swear a declaration of office before taking office, and one of the things that you have in the list is that you will disclose all pecuniary interests, direct or indirect. And then, of course, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in Section 5 puts the obligation on the member to declare a pecuniary interest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mascaron.
I apologize, Councillor Beatty.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor, I'm sorry, Mr. McCarron.
I apologize. I should have asked this previously, and I just wanted to just be very clear. You're probably wondering why this report is even here, and it's because the Municipal Act itself requires me to make a decision. I don't make decisions in other reports. What I do is issue findings, but with respect to the municipal conflict of interest, this is the first one that's been brought forward. I actually have to write a report and have it come to council because it has to be published. That's what the Municipal Act requires. It doesn't require the same thing in the context of a code of conduct matter. So in case you were wondering, like, why is this report here and why is it out here, even though there's been no finding of contravention, it's because the Municipal Act requires me to make a decision on it and then to indicate whether I will apply to a judge. And of course, the report doesn't find any contravention. We find that Deputy Mayor Norcross, in fact, didn't have a pecuniary interest, but even if he did, it would be remote or insignificant. So therefore, he had no obligation to declare and disclose. And the report says that, and it says that we're not going to apply to a judge. So I'm sorry to lengthen the tonight's meeting, but I wanted to explain that.
Good, thank you. Thanks for the explanation. I'll read the motion again. Be resolved that the report of the Integrity Commissioner of 20-09 dated February 23rd, 2021 be received, and third that the deputation of John McCarron, Integrity Commissioner, be received. And who is my mover and seconder, Madam Clerk? Councillor Jebb. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thanks, Mr. Mascaron, for coming in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
C3, motion be resolved that the County of Simcoe meeting minutes dated January 26, 21 be received. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Jebb. All in favor or questions? Councillor Jebb.
Thank you, Your Worship. On page 23 of 28 of the minutes, it's page 67 of our package. It talks about the organic transfer area. And I did speak to one of the staff at the county about an Actium composting item. It's 20 feet long. It's a cylinder. And it takes up to 5,000 pounds of organic matter a week. And it has a 450 cubic foot capacity. And that's something maybe that the county should be looking at because it will lower our carbon footprint because it keeps the gas inside the chamber as it's composting down. So I can give the information to you and the deputy mayor to carry forward up to the county. It's something maybe we should be looking at it for their organics.
Definitely. Thank you, Councillor Jeb. We'll definitely make sure it gets there. Any other questions? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. CW 31. Madam Clerk, is this, we go to Mr. Chicken Dance now? Okay. Sorry. Councilor McClellan, did you have a conflict on this? What you were saying?
Temporary restaurant patios?
No, Mr. Chicken Dance?
Nope. Nope.
Okay. All right, I apologize. Yeah, W. I apologize, Councilor McClellan. I can't read my writing with regards to the restaurant patio, so I apologize. Councilor Foster.
In addition, thank you, Mayor Millen. In addition to Councilor McClellan's conflict of interest, I wanted to pull that as a separate item, so if we're going to do that now.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Millen. Through you to, I don't see Mr. Brooke Bishop on the call, so I'll leave this to who's going to answer it. If I recall from the restaurant patio program, it was dated May 15th to November 15th. We are at March 1st, and I know it's snowing like a dickens outside, so it's hard to believe that anything may happen before May 15th. But I think in light of the situation, we should do everything we possibly can to allow these patios, if reasonable, to open up, weather permitting, as compared to May 15th. So I would put that out there that we should include that as a possibility. I mean, there's been lots of times when we played golf in March, and April is a wonderful month. And considering what restaurants are going through and have been through, I think we should give them every possible advantage we can in order to help them recover.
Councilor Beatty.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm fully supportive of Councillor Foster's idea. And I'm just wondering if we should make a specific date. And I'm thinking April 15th, because that's the day that the winter snow removal bylaw expires. So I wouldn't want to be putting equipment out and then have to send a plow through. So hopefully it won't snow anymore between April 1st and 15th. But if it did, I wouldn't want to affect any of the restaurants. So if we could just have it line up with the winter operations, then I think it would be a great idea.
Thank you. Councilor Harrison McIntyre.
Your Worship, I agree with everything they've said. I mean, if people want to sit out in their snowsuits, I'd be supportive of that.
Is there anyone else? I'm just waiting for the clerk. You have the clerk. You have the motion, Madam Clerk. Yeah.
Sorry about that, Your Worship. If I can just have that repeated, if you don't mind.
Councilor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Millen. That the start date for the temporary patio program be readjusted from May 15th to April 15th to coincide with the termination of the winter maintenance. Just as I think about this, I ask myself, that would be the bump out patios, but for patios, what if we would add, I'll ask this to Councillor Beattie because I believe he'll probably second this motion, if we just adjusted that weather permitting for patios that are not impacted by any sort of road or sidewalk maintenance, April 15th for as a starting date for those patios that are affected by road or sidewalk maintenance. Are you amenable to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should actually make it April 15th to November 15th because then it coincides with the parameters of the winter operations bylaw as well. Gives everybody another month, hopefully.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to Mr. Chicken Dance regards to the application for zoning bylaw amendment of the Walton South Central Residential Development Corporation, Block 142 on Plan 51M1053 West County Subdivision in the community of Beaton, file number development 396. Mr. Chicken Dance, please.
Yes, Mayor Milne, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Mr. Chicken Dance.
Can I proceed with my presentation?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mayor Milne, Deputy Mayor Norcross, members of council, and members of New Tecumseth staff. First off, I want to thank you for the opportunity to address council on this matter. As the mayor mentioned, the matter is with respect to the rezoning application made for Block 142 in the West Country subdivision neighborhood in the Beaton community. As you're well aware, this is a matter that was discussed and a decision made during Committee of the Whole on February 1st. And I believe at the time, in hindsight, that decision was made with some important information not presented to council. And I certainly greatly appreciate this opportunity to present that information. And I have 3 points that I would like to make. First off, my company, my family business, Farsight Homes, has a deep understanding, is empathetic to the situation that has faced the residents of the West Country subdivision for many years in terms of finishing the homes, finishing off the sidewalks, the roads in the community. And let me explain for a moment, and this is probably not public information that council or the residents are aware of. So prior to proceeding with our adjoining subdivision, and at that time, the developer of West Country had already gone into receivership and the receiver was handling matters, we approached them to make an agreement to purchase all the bits and lots and blocks on our mutual property line. We came to a conclusion, and before we finalized the deal, I insisted that the receiver go back to the municipality to ask to make sure that the municipality had the adequate amount of securities available to finish off the subdivision. And if they did not, we insisted that any monies that we would pay would first go to the municipality to make those whole. And this can be verified by both the Mr. Vatry and also the town solicitor, Mr. Feely, that on the conclusion of that deal, there was a check that went directly from my solicitor to Mr. Feely in the tune of $440,000 to make sure that the town had adequate funds to complete those services. And I just want to make this point, had we not intervened, then there would have been this shortfall of $440,000, and the general tax revenue would have to be used to complete that. The second point I'd like to make, in the analysis of whether Block 142 is appropriate as a park space, those of you that have gone down and actually seen that block of land or looked in detail on our application will notice that there's a slope of 2 meters from the road back to the property line at the back. So there's a significant slope of the park proposed over that length of land, which would make it very difficult at best to be a usable park space. You couldn't put any playground equipment on, not even put a park bench on. So unless significant improvements were made to that parkette by the use of retaining walls and guardrails, there would be no flat area or usable space for that park. And that brings up the point, if it sloped so much, unless the grass was cut with hand mowers, and which is highly unlikely, I think we all have to be concerned about the safety of the town's employees maintaining such a sloped piece of property with riding mowers. There's certainly we all have to be mindful of that. And there certainly wasn't in the initial staff report, given that there's probably very little use of any usable land of this parkette, the cost to the municipality in perpetuity. And the third point I'd like to make, and probably the most important point I'd like to make, is that my company, Farset, owns additional land in the immediate vicinity of Block 142 that has the potential to add more parkland and green space that far exceeds what would be expected from Block 142 and being a significant greater benefit to the community of West Country, the neighborhood, and beyond. In subsequent to the committee of the whole, I've had meetings with Director Hoppy, as well as his colleagues and the planning staff, to put forth this idea of providing additional lands and augmenting and implementing further park space in the area. Now, I'm not going to put words in the director's mouth, but if you have the opportunity to ask a question, I direct you to do so. And this is an opportunity that I look at to do things better, to provide greater benefit to the community. So in essence, what I'm asking this evening is that council table or defer a decision on the rezoning of the block to afford us the opportunity to discuss and properly evaluate alternatives to not only enhance the parkland, but improve it in the area. I think we all have an opportunity to do the best job possible. And this is all about doing a better job and providing more green space and parkland opportunities for the neighborhood and beyond. That's all I have to say, and I'd be pleased to ask, I should say, answer any question that the council may have of what I'm requesting. In essence, I'm not requesting for a decision to be made on rezoning. I want to properly have, to evaluate the opportunities and then bring the matter back to committee of the whole and then council for consideration at that time. Thank you very much again, and I appreciate it.
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. One of these days, Councillor Foster and then Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, through you to Mr. Schickadance. Not to go into, I think you piqued everyone's interest when you said your Block 142, which is the current parcel of land, which is proposed as parkland, that you have a bigger piece of parkland that you would perceive to be a better piece of parkland, and all you're simply asking us is to defer a decision, listen to your additional information, and then vote on it at a later date, whether we vote to continue with the path we're on or whether we continue to look at your possibility and give it due consideration that it will provide a greater benefit to the municipality. Is that how I interpret what you're asking us?
Mr. Schickadance?
Yes, through you, Mayor Milne, that is correct, Councillor Foster. I'm saying, and certainly that is my opinion, but ultimately it's council's decision. but I feel quite strongly that we have an opportunity here. And at this juncture, really, what is a hurry to shut the door if there's something that can provide a greater benefit to the community? I'm looking for consideration to evaluate that properly and to bring a proper staff report back to the committee of the whole, and then council for a final decision.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shigadance.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you to Mr. Shickendance for coming to address council tonight. I just have two questions. My first one is, if you own more land in that subdivision, could you not build your 8 houses on that?
Mr. Chickendale.
Through you, Mayor Milne, to Councillor McClellan, a portion of that land is not accessible to put a road system in, given the built-up community around it. So partially, some portions could be developable, and other portions, just the way it's situated, unfortunately, would make it very difficult to develop.
Okay, thank you. And my second question for a follow-up is, this land that you speak of, what is it currently zoned right now?
Mr. Chickendale.
Through you, Mayor Milne, I believe the land is zoned open space.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Shickendance. These residents have gone a long time without a park, a very, very long time. So this deferral that you're requesting, what type of time frame could we expect for you to have an alternative or another suggestion to make it better back to council? I think there needs to be a time frame, if there can be, please, a time frame attached. Thank you. Mr.
Chickendale.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Milne, to Deputy Mayor Norcross. Again, I'm understanding it. It has been, to say the very least, a considerable number of years that the residents of the neighborhood have gone without a park. I believe the Patel Park plan for the community is going to construction this year, but I don't have confirmation of that. Town staff would be able to confirm that. I'm not looking for a long period of deferral. I think, though, it would be appropriate to do a proper evaluation, is not only do a paper exercise, but perhaps have the snow melt, that we have an ability to go out in the field and everyone to be comfortable sort of what the land alternatives are and get a better sense of that. I'm not looking anything going beyond sort of maybe the first of the summer or before this matter gets addressed back before committee of the whole and council. Something of that nature is certainly what I would have in mind, and I hope that would meet with your approval.
Thank you. Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. When we had this discussion the first time around, I had asked, it was mentioned that the Ontario Municipal Board had ruled that there should be 2 parks. I didn't know we were going to have it investigated as to what size the second park was supposed to be. Did it have hectares in the ruling from the OMB at the time? And the lands that are for the 8 homes, and Mr. Shickendance is saying this land is greater in area, square area. So that could be part of the discussions with staff as to what the actual words were. And our solicitor was going to check that, but I didn't see that in the minutes. On page 6 of 9 of the February 1 committee of the whole that I have in front of me. So I guess that will happen now if Mr. Shickendance meets with the town solicitor and with Mr. Vatry and the different members of staff, Mr. Burton, who does parks and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to be sure that we clear that up. Thank you.
Councillor Noah, and then Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to be fair to Mr. Shickendance, I think we should take the opportunity and wait on a new proposal that he's proposing. And it sounds very interesting to me. If you have a parkland with a 6-foot drop or 2 meter, I believe you said.
That is
so
correct.
So that's over 6 feet, and he's willing to provide better parkland. I think we should look at that idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I think to address something that Councillor Sainsbury said, the 2 park blocks that were supposed to be conveyed to the town, so one did, and the park block in question did equal 5%, which is the statutory requirement for dedicated parkland. There's lots of usable space over there. I drive by it quite often, and it's there's definitely usable space over there. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McClellan. Anyone else? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Just a quick question. The existing block 142, there was, I apologize for my not knowing this question. There was going to be a park there built this summer. Like, will this decision that we're doing push a proposed park that was going to go in July, to Deputy Mayor Norcross's point? I don't believe that we will be doing that by listening to what Mr. Schickedan has to say. Can I get clarification from possibly Director Burton?
Mr. Hoppy.
Through your worship to Councillor Foster, the subject land is block 142. The larger park block is block 143. So this decision tonight does not affect the larger park block, which is proposed to be constructed this year.
Thank you, Director Hoppy, for the clarification.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I will add that there's quite a few upset residents that they can't be a part of this conversation because, again, we had committee and they were all here and spoke their mind. And now the game is changing again when we don't allow for public participation. I think that's a problem. I think waiting for the summer is a problem. I know we have 2 meetings in April. I was hoping at either the 12th or the 26th, this could come back. And I'm wondering if there's any possibly GM Hoppy or any planning staff on the meeting that can confirm what the zoning is on the proposed land that Mr. Schickedan speaks of. I know he said he thought it was open space. I just didn't know if that could be confirmed.
Director Hoppy.
Your worship, through you to Councillor McClellan, I don't have the maps in front of me, but I do believe most of the lands that he's speaking of is zoned environmental protection, EP. The lands roughly run north of this block all the way up to Lily. So there's a large amount of land with a creek running through there. And I think the hope is that when the spring conditions allow, that we might be able to walk through there and find out if there is usable space for a trail system, etc.
I'll follow up if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor McClellan.
I guess my follow-up to the lands being zone environmental protection is that because they run right alongside the creek and are probably more than likely floodplain.
I'll give it to you.
Your worship, through you, yes, most of those lands are either the creek itself runs through a portion of the lands, and I believe they're all regulated by the Conservation Authority. So yes, I would agree.
Councillor McClellan.
I know that our official plan and our planning policies speak to not allowing hazard land or floodplain land to count towards our requirement for parkland. And I think that needs to be kept in the forefront. Living in Beaton all my life, I know what happens over there when it's spring and it's fall and it's wet and it's muddy. It's not usable. I don't think anyone is going to be overly supportive of building any type of path and disturbing the wildlife and the natural landscape over there. And yeah, like I said, we don't allow a land swap for hazard land or floodplain land to be considered parkland. Thank you.
Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. When this is discussed, how is this different than the Boyne River running through Riverdale Park? To me, it would be the same sort of thing, and we have a trail on one side, and we're going to improve it with the grant that we've received and so on, if we get the grant. And so I guess if we look at all the parks, quite a few of them have water around them, even the conservation area. So I think that has to be looked at with a discussion with staff as well. That we're not, I don't think it's precedent setting. There's many towns that have it. Mad River's the same in Premor, where their park is. They just made flat, solid land so they could install playground equipment.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
I think it's important that we go back to the 2011 OMB ruling because they dismissed floodplain, using floodplain land for parkland, which is why they very carefully chose the parkland blocks that they did choose. Thank you.
Thank you, McCall. Anyone else? Director Hoppy.
Your Worship, I just had a chance to check the zoning. So a portion of the lands are zoned environmental protection, the easterly piece. There's another parcel of land, the westerly piece, that is zoned agricultural A1. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you. Through GM Hoppy. So if they're zoned environmental protection, are they also zoned floodplain, as Councillor McCollum was suggesting?
Director Hoppy.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Harrison McIntyre, we don't have a zoning in that category.
No, you wouldn't. I knew that as soon as I said that, but
that's okay. So a lot of the lands are low lying. They're all like a lot of the town. They are subject to the lake or the Nottawasaga Valley regulated area. But we could certainly, if council directs us to look into that, we could certainly have those details in the follow-up report.
Any other questions?
So I would recommend then that we have staff work with Mr. Chickendance, and that staff look into the nature of the land there. Gosh, I don't know why I can't think of what to say there. If it's floodplain and how that's going to be accommodated, we know that there are definitely areas that are in floodplain that are also parks. If you look at the conservation areas, how can that be addressed? How can it be made better so that it's still a useful space for our residents?
Councillor Jeff.
Also, to add to that, asking that staff review the OMB settlement and have it actually written down. I think Councillor Sainsbury had asked for that so that we have it right from the settlement as well, the information regarding that, and have it come back to a committee of the whole.
Right. Do we have a motion then that refer this back to staff? Because I haven't heard of a motion yet. Yes. Councillor Noel.
I'll make the motion that we refer this back to staff.
Second. Councillor Sainsbury. Question, Councillor McClellan.
I'd like a recorded vote on this, please.
Okay.
Is this a referral or deferral?
So, Your Worship, I've just been finalizing the proposed motion, if council would like to hear it.
Yes, please.
Okay. So just give you one moment here. Might need Director Hoppy to help me on the last piece. So what I have is, be it resolved that report PD 2021-08 be received, and further that the deputations of Jennifer Fata, Nadia Perez, and Tyler McMillan be received. Further that the deputation of Bob Chickendance be received. And further that this item be referred back to staff to consult with the developer to evaluate the additional land in the immediate vicinity of Block 142, which has the potential to provide additional parkland/green space. And further, that staff be directed to review the OMB settlement in 2011 and the NBCA regulations and report back to committee of the whole within 3 months.
Any questions now? And a recorded vote is requested by Councilor McClellan.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Those all in favor of the motion, please raise your card. Okay, and those opposed, please raise your card. No call. Okay, through Your Worship, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The next one. CW 5-6 and Councilor McClellan.
We need the motion first.
And she requests recorded vote. She requested recorded vote. Yeah, she'll read the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Motion is be it resolved that report PRC 2021-01 be received, and further that staff be directed to proceed with a single source award to BG Benton Group LTE for the project restart, continued detailed design, and contract administration services for the upset fee of $479,672 plus HST in accordance with the proposal dated January 19th, 2021. And further that a 10% project contingency allowance in the amount of $50,000 plus HST be approved within the general manager of infrastructure and development or their designate is authorized to make amendments to the scope of work. So,
any questions? I think we just want to vote.
Okay, great. Thank you, Your Worship. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your card. Okay, and those opposed? And through Your Worship, I just want to confirm we had a mover and seconder on that.
I'll move it, Your Worship.
Councilor Noel and Councilor Sainsbury.
Okay, so through Your Worship, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Next one is CS1. And
for Your Worship, we're actually okay with that one. It was actually considered at the special council meeting.
okay,
Thank you.
and we'll go to our CAO for a verbal report. Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Good evening, Mayor Milne, Deputy Mayor Norcross, members of council. Please bear with me, as I'm sure you can appreciate. There's been a number of items come our way over the past couple of days with respect to our ongoing efforts. So we've been working diligently in our efforts to understand and to stop the spread of COVID-19 in our community and around the world. And it's certainly been a long year, and it's almost coming up to a year, actually. But today marks a tremendous milestone in our fight against COVID-19. The Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit has been working tirelessly with our community partners to bring vaccination clinics to sites throughout the county. Our first vaccination clinic was held in New Tecumseth today at the Alliston Memorial Arena. And this location had the most appointments scheduled and planned to administer the most vaccine in all of Simcoe-Muskoka today. And that's something that I think we should be incredibly proud of. A few challenges over the first couple of hours caused some lineups at the site, but they were rectified and we were back on track by mid-afternoon. So again, that's something that there's a lot of people poured a lot of effort into that, and we're certainly happy to see those doors open. There are more vaccination clinics planned in our community this week at both the AMA as well as the Tottenham Community and Fitness Center in the days to come. The health unit is coordinating and organizing these clinics, and appointments are available by pre-booking only. Eligibility for the vaccine is based on regional vaccine supply, provincial direction, and regional prioritization. We understand that all appointments for the coming week in Simcoe Muskoka are now full. Should additional clinics be added in our community, anyone looking for information about clinics, eligibility requirements, and or booking an appointment must contact the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit either at their website or their toll-free number, which is 1-877-721-7520, and all that information is located on the town's website. Also, as you know, the province has moved Simcoe Muskoka, which includes the town of New Tecumseth, into the gray lockdown, which is a maximum measures level classification. And the province is keeping Ontario safe and open framework, effective this morning, March 1st. According to the provincial government, this measure is based on the latest assessment of data and is intended to help stop the spread of the virus as well as variants of concern and protect public health and the healthcare system capacity in the regions. The Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit advises that there is a surge in cases of the B117, the UK variant of COVID-19, and this is extremely concerning given its rapid rate of transmission. Recognizing the risk posed by new variants to the province's pandemic response, Ontario introduced what they're calling an emergency brake to allow the Chief Medical Officer of Health, in consultation with a local medical officer of health, to immediately advise moving a region into gray lockdown to interrupt transmission. We understand that Simcoe Muskoka's gray classification will be reviewed regularly. However, at this point, we do not have a specific time frame as to how long we will remain in gray. Having said that, and as I've mentioned previously, really success through all of this lies in the hands of each one of us to do our part. The increased level of classification means changes to a number of things, including the number of gatherings, with no indoor organized public events and social gatherings except with members of your same household. There is also a limit for outdoor organized public events and social gatherings where physical distancing can be maintained to 10 people outdoors. The gray zone also impacts restaurants, bars, and food and drink establishments, as indoor and outdoor service must be closed, limiting services to takeout and drive-through and delivery only. Retail businesses will also need to follow additional measures. For the full list of retail measures in the gray level are available on the province's website. For our Parks, Recreation, and Culture area, the gray zone means that the following are now in effect. All town of New Tecumseth recreation centers, as well as the museum on the Boyne, are closed. All facility rentals, bookings, and pre-registered uses of classes, fitness center use, walking tracks, etc. will be canceled until a later date. Open space, playgrounds, parks, trails, and walking paths will remain available for individual physical activity use. However, all health protocols must be followed. And a friendly reminder to all our users of our playgrounds that equipment is not sanitized. As we know that COVID-19 is highly transmissible, we remind all our youngsters and our families that do use the equipment to take extra precautions to ensure you are following all public health protocols to minimize risks of carrying the virus to others in the household. Weather permitting, the outdoor rink at the Tottenham Community and Fitness Center remains available for leisure skating, and with reduced numbers to a maximum of 10 skaters at one time, with rotations every 30 minutes. Due to the weather over the weekend, the other two outdoor ice surfaces that were on existing ball diamonds and Donor Diamond in Alliston and the Beaton Fairgrounds are now closed. Should we get another round of cold temperatures, which some of us hope we don't, but those that enjoy getting out and skating, I imagine they do, we will consider reopening them, but they are highly weather dependent. The New Tecumseth Public Library branches continue to offer contactless curbside pickup, but remain closed to public access until further notice. We had planned to allow public walk-ins for general customer service at Town Hall starting today. However, with the change to gray zone, we will be further extending our opening date for public walk-ins of our administration center until it is deemed safe to do so. The Joint Operations Center will remain closed to public walk-ins until further notice. And we understand that it is not easy for some during these times to access town services, and we continue to encourage anyone who may require assistance to please call the town, and we will accommodate our residents and businesses by arranging appointments with any of our staff. Some examples of services that require prearranged appointments with staff include discussing a project or an application or a permit with our building or planning departments, marriage license pickup, tow truck licenses, freedom of information issues, pickup or drop off of documents. To date, we have seen limited requests for appointments. However, it is important for our community to know that we are still just a phone call or a click away and always happy to help however we can. We also continue to encourage our residents to use technology and online options wherever possible. And I would encourage everyone to please continue to follow the town's website and social media accounts for accurate information on the impacts to our services. We also encourage our residents to subscribe to our webpage at www.newtecumseth.ca/COVID-19 to automatically receive updates when any changes are made to our town services due to COVID-19. These are important tools during this time to ensure you have the most up-to-date information on impacts to town services, and we strongly encourage our residents to connect with us. To help stop the spread of COVID-19 and safeguard our health system capacity, the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit is strongly urging everyone to continue staying at home and limiting trips outside their household and in between regions for essential reasons only, not to gather with individuals outside of their household, and to wear a face covering when within 2 meters distance of another individual who is not part of their household, both indoor and outdoor, or when required with very limited exceptions. And finally, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to everyone who lent a hand to bring vaccination clinics to our community. From the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit, the people at Stevenson Memorial Hospital, our area healthcare professionals, as well as our own employees, all of whom continue to work tirelessly for the health and well-being of our community. And with that, Mayor Milne, I'll turn things back to you, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. And we'll go with Councillor Foster and then Councillor Shaw, then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. A couple of comments and then one question. We had, actually my lovely wife took one of our family friends at the age of 90 down to the AMA today. And she came back with a glowing report, actually, aside from a couple of seniors comparing their ailments to determine who should be further ahead in line. It was a very successful day, and her hats off to the people from the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit, the patience they show and the decency towards our seniors. And I think the other important thing to note was almost every senior down there was accompanied by someone in their family or someone to help them. So I think that speaks to the type of community we have. And so I think that's an important note to touch on. Second, I had one comment about CAO. We make a lot of references to the internet, and please check in, and we have an excellent website with lots of information. But there is a contingency in our community that do not have ready access to that. And I had suggested that maybe if the municipality took out maybe an ad, half-page ad in the newspaper, giving the Simcoe County Health number, just a number of points that most people that don't have access to. I think it would be a great public service announcement on behalf of the municipality. It'd be a minimal cost, but I think for those, and I did check with my 84-year-old mother today, and she can confirm that it has not appeared in the paper prior to this week, or else she would have had a cutout hanging on the fridge. So you can be rest assured it has not been done. And then my last question on a bit more of a serious note. I think we all understand the devastating impact this is having on business and especially restaurants and small retailers. And I think we all saw that Mr. Lehman from Barrie, there's been some comments. And I think we all hope that we don't have large scale distension, because that's not going to help. But can the CAO speak to any movement anywhere that possibly the medical officer of health might zero in on a couple of particularly hard to hit areas to say we can work to do something without sacrificing the safety of all? So that's a very broad general question, because I know there's just some pain out there that I don't think anybody on this screen fully understands, myself included. So
thank you. Mr. CIO.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, and through you to Councillor Foster. Let me first start with just adding a couple of thoughts to your original comments. Councillor Foster, thank you for your passing along your thoughts on the vaccination clinic. As I mentioned, we did run into a couple of little hiccups here and there, but I think for the most part, for day one and for serving the most people of any of the clinics that are open right now, it went off tremendously. And that's as a result of really all I can describe as a tireless effort by a very large number of people. Our own employees, the health unit, the people at Stevenson have been incredible. So everyone has rolled up their sleeves and worked very, very well together. And I think it's a very symbolic of how we'll get through all the rest of the aspects of the current situation. I'm not one much for hurling criticism, especially when perhaps some people don't understand some of the things that some other people are dealing with. So I think the best way to continue to work through it is work together respectfully, keep rolling up our sleeves, and we'll get through this. Your second comment with respect to communications with the vaccination clinics, we will look into that. I know the health unit has been very specific with respect to how they'd like to see communications handled. They are managing all of the communications, and they've actually asked us to avoid certain forms of type of communications. So we'll continue to work with them, but we will look into anything and everything that we can do to ensure all our residents are fully aware of the vaccination clinics, what they need to do, and how they need to make an appointment. So we will definitely make sure that we're using all the possible platforms that we can. To answer your question, there's a lot of moving parts with respect to that, Councillor Foster. And I know from working with the health unit over the past year, they have been very receptive to feedback, and they will continue to look at all the various areas and allow things to function as they safely can. I can certainly appreciate the businesses that are most or the hardest hit through all of this. It's been devastating for some. But on the other hand, it's also been devastating to a lot of families that have lost loved ones. So it's something that I know the health unit is very conscientious of. They recognize the challenges on everyone, both from a personal level and a professional level, business level. And I guess all I can say is that from my own experience with working with them, they have been extremely open to feedback, and I know that they will continue to function that way. And wherever we can do so safely, we will ensure that people can do whatever they can. But obviously, the health and safety of the community, the individuals, our families, has to come first and foremost.
Thank you. Councillor Noel?
Thank you, Worship. My question is to the CAO. With respect to our seniors, I was watching the news there and I noticed that there was a vaccination clinic in Toronto and all the seniors were lined up outside. Can we make room for the seniors? Are they lined up outside? I know the elements are pretty severe, like today, but are we able to get all the seniors inside while they wait for their vaccination?
Mr. CAO?
Mayor Milne, through you to Councillor Noy, I will offer my understanding, Councillor Noy, and then with us here in the council chambers is Chief Hayden, and I'll ask him to speak to that in more detail. Chief Hayden has been working on the task force from the very start as new Tecumseth representative, and he's one of those people that has put in tireless effort to get us to where we are today. So my understanding, Councillor Noy, is that that's the importance of the appointments, is to ensure that the number of people that are arriving at any one point in time can be easily accommodated within the facility. The wait is as limited as possible, and they can move through from registering to their vaccination to their recovery period afterwards as quickly and as seamlessly as possible. But I'd ask Chief Hayden to speak to any more details of that.
Chief Hayden?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Noy. That was one of the early challenges that the CAO spoke about today. At the start of the clinic, as the immunization started to ramp up, the registration started to ramp up. There was a host of people that unfortunately were lined up for a period of time outside until the speed of the whole process caught up. So about 2 o'clock, it had leveled off, and there was, to my knowledge, there was nobody that was outside after that point. To your point about staging inside, the Stimco Muskoka Health Unit and the staff are very conscientious about physical spacing in the facility. We've used about 3/4 of the floor at this point through the 8 immunizations as this site is scheduled to grow to 8 immunizations sessions. There will be additional requirements on the floor. So at this point, they're staging in the hallway and up to the registration point, and then they move through the flow. So approximately 10 staged inside. As the CEO pointed out, it absolutely makes sense to make the appointment. It doesn't mean you need to be there an hour ahead of your appointment, because I believe that was some of the challenges we saw today. So arrive at your appointment time. You should get queued into the stream of the center to meet the timing, and we'll avoid standing outside in the weathers we saw today.
Good. Thank you, Chief Hayden. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much, Mr. CEO, for everything that you're doing. I had a resident bring it up to me that we do have seniors in our residents in our population that may not have access to transportation. Is there a transportation alternative supplied by the county, the district health unit, or the town, or is there somewhere they can reach out to, or how would we address that? You don't have to answer right now, Mr. CEO. I told the individual I would get back to them on how we're dealing with transportation for our seniors that don't have transportation to get the vaccine. Thank you.
Mr. CEO.
Mayor Milne, through you, the Deputy Mayor, thank you for bringing that to my attention, Deputy Mayor. We will definitely look into that. As council is aware, we do have our taxi service. And that would be certainly the first. What I would suggest that I wouldn't hesitate for a second expressing, I guess, the need to council to allow our seniors to get there. So it may not fall neatly within the parameters of that current subsidized taxi service, but in my opinion, it would fall as a medical appointment. And in that way, we could certainly accommodate them within that subsidized service, but we will look into that further to see what else can be done. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Great, sir.
Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Perhaps through you to the fire chief. Do we have a total number of how many people did go to the clinics today, or how many have been done through Stevenson? And just out of our 38,000 population, how many people have been accommodated so far?
Fire Chief Hayden.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sainsbury. Interestingly enough, I was just texting with the Vice President of Stimco Muskoka Health and asked that specific question. And I did ask whether this was okay to release to the public. And there is over 360 doses today at Alliston Memorial Arena. So for a soft launch, first day clinic in the community, I think it was very much a success.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Jeff.
I was getting a bit of feedback. How many doses today? Sorry, Chief Hayden.
Chief Hayden.
360 doses today at the Alliston Memorial Arena. Just over.
Thank you. All right, look for a mover and seconder be resolved that the verbal report of the CAO be received. Moved by Councillor Noah, second by Councillor Sainsbury. All in favor? Thank you. Bylaws. Bylaw 2021-014, 2021-015, Bylaw 2021-016, Bylaw 2021-017, bylaw 2021-018, bylaw 2021-019. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Jeb and Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. There is a public meeting this Wednesday at 7 p.m. here, and it will be conducted by a Zoom video conferencing. And you're welcome to review the agenda on the town website. The motion then for confirming bylaw be resolved that bylaw 2021-020 be confirmed. The proceedings of the council at its meeting on March 1st, 2021 be read first, second, and third time enacted. Mover and second. Moved by Councillor Jeb, second by Councillor Lacey. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And motion to adjourn, Councillor Jeb.
Your worship, motion to adjourn at 8:45.
All in favor? Okay. We'll take a 10-minute break and then come back. All right.
Your worship. Rick?
All right, council, staff, and ladies and gentlemen who are watching this on live stream or on Rogers. The committee of a whole meeting, March 1st. At this time, we'll go to the awards of recognition to council. The awards of recognition. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. I put up my card at the end of the council meeting just quickly to add one comment. Is one of the qualities that I think endears most to seniors is the fact that they're never late. And at today's meeting or at today's at the Alston Memorial Arena, as Fire Chief Hayden pointed out, is that by arriving early in this particular instance, it was resolved very quickly. But just if any seniors are listening or paying attention, or the message is, please try to interrupt the routine that you've done all your life and try to be right on time. So if your appointment is 5:15, just give yourself 5 minutes of room, because it will avoid that issue of lining up. But on a good note, there was a lot of people that put the seniors in the car, kept it warm, and they took the place in line, whether it be their son, daughter, or whatever. So, you know what, it really worked out well, and it's amazing how people rise to the challenge when challenges occur. So, just a small point.
Thanks, Councillor Foster. Anyone else? Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Worship. You were going to mention Canada's Agriculture Day, I believe, and the award.
Yes. If there isn't any more questions, and one of the first things that we've done this year was regards to the hamburger, thanks to Councillor Jebb setting it up. And we had a very honest judge to judge the hamburgers and the display. And I'm very happy to say that the winner was Councillor Harrison McIntyre, received a very expensive gift from the town of New Tecumseth. And the two runners up was the deputy mayor and Councillor Jebb. And Councillor Jebb got a pen, and I believe you also got a cup. I saw your cup in it. And so thanks very much, everyone. Let's make this a yearly thing. And a grateful thanks goes out to our judge, Councillor Sainsbury. She did quite a job to do to judge. And unfortunately, the two runners up, their envelope wasn't as full as Councillor Harrison McIntyre's envelope was. So that's how she got it. So congratulations, everyone. All right, I'll go to the clerk to identify any items to add or delete. Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. We have CW15, request for pet shop licensing bylaw, written motion by Deputy Mayor Norcross. We have a few deputations. CW54, update to report PD 2020-01, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 27 Mill Street East, Tonham. And we have deputations, and that's file number DEV 399. And we also have CS1, verbal report of the CAO closed, unsolicited request to purchase portion of NTRC land, and verbal.
Great, thank you very much. Also, Council, I didn't know right at the beginning that there will not be a special after. All right, I'll go with anyone that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting held on March 1st, 2021 be heard as circulated. I'm getting good feedback here.
That's really bad.
Okay. Questions, Councilor Lacey?
I wasn't sure if we were going to pull some items from members of council.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Do you mind, or
I'll just, if I can just get over this motion, then we'll.
Oh, okay.
Okay. A mover and seconder, and then for the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting held on March 1st, 2021. The Secretary, Councillor Jebb and Councillor McClellan, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. If you have a peculiar interest at this time, you can call it or when the item comes up. I'll go over to the clerk to identify items for separate discussion. Madam Clerk.
Sorry about that, Your Worship. My computer was starting to die. CW 15, request for pet shop licensing bylaw, written motion from Deputy Mayor Norcross, deputation. CW 54, update to report PD 2020-01, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 27 Mill Street East, Conham, deputation. And CS1, verbal report of the CEO closed and supposed to request to purchase portion of the NTRC land.
Good, thank you. All right, I'll go to Council now to identify for separate discussion. Councilor Lacey.
Motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. It was just hard to hear you earlier, the feedback.
Yeah, I know.
CW 54, update to report.
Could I pull
2001, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 27
CW 55, please?
Deputation. And CS1, verbal report of the CEO closed and supposed to request to purchase portion of the NTRC land.
Good, thank you. Councilor Noyle. All right, I'll go to Council now to identify
Thanks, Your
for separate discussion. Councilor Lacey.
CW 41.
Thank you, Your Worship. It was just hard to hear you
42,
earlier, the
please.
feedback.
Yeah, I know it was. Councilor Sainsbury. Your mute's on.
I turned it off so people wouldn't get feedback, and I keep forgetting to put it on. I apologize. CW 43, the noise bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to speak to my motion 1.5. Thank you when it comes up, but also CW 5.5, the Community Improvement Plan. In the last part of the report, there's a new grant that's being added, and on page 68 of 70 of the report, my building, the Muddy Water Hotel, has been identified in that report. So I'm going to declare a conflict now, Your Worship, and I'll investigate further so I know going forward what I should do. But I just want to err on the side of caution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McClellan.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of them have been pulled, but I'd like to pull CW 13, please.
Thank you. Councilor Beatty.
Mine have been pulled. Thanks, Your Worship.
Good, thank you. Councilor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. 1.4.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, go back to the clerk to summarize all items for separate discussion.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. CW 13, request for staff report on short and long-term parking solutions for the community of Conham, written motion from Councilor Lacey. CW 14, request for review of code of conduct for members of council and local boards policy, written motion from Councilor Foster. CW 15, request for pet shop licensing bylaw, written motion from Deputy Mayor Norcross. And we have deputations on that. CW 41, municipal asset management program grant. CW 42, use of land for public parking agreement, 33 Victoria Street West, Alliston. CW 43, noise bylaw review, improved compliance, enforcement, and integration with development agreements update. We have CW 54. We have the update to PD 2020-01, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 27 Mill Street East, Conham. CW 55, community improvement plan, Deputy Mayor Norcross, pecuniary interest. We have CS1, verbal report of the CAO closed, unsolicited request to purchase portion of NTRC land.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I apologize. CW 56, I do have a conflict of interest.
Through Your Worship, CW 56, award of tender P2108, supply of crushed granular road material.
Look for a mover and seconder that all items not identified for separate discussion be received and the recommendation therein be recommended to council for adoption. Moved by Councilor Noyle, second by Councilor Sainsbury. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. First item is CW 13, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering if Councillor Lacey would be open to adding Beaton to this motion. I know it's more of a problem in Tottenham currently, but I think if we're going to investigate future parking, that Beaton should be looked at as well. So I didn't know if he was open to that amendment.
Okay. All right, I'll go to the CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. And I'm sorry, Councillor Lacey, I didn't mean to steal the spotlight from you. But what I would suggest, if Councillor Lacey would be amenable to it, is it's something that we did speak about at a great level of detail following Councillor Lacey reaching out to us. And I would suggest it's probably well within or well due for the entire town to have a very comprehensive parking analysis done. And it's something that our staff have been considering in the last little bit, but we'd like to move it forward certainly a lot quicker, based on Councillor Lacey's input from the Tottenham area, and now Councillor McClellan's input from the Beaton area. Certainly the business improvement area in Alliston has recognized that the need for parking and the concern that we have with adequate parking in all of our downtown areas. So I would certainly recommend to council respectfully that we consider all the areas and do a comprehensive parking analysis.
Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think in the to make it easier for everybody and cost, I think that'd be a good solution. Let's do it all over New Tecumseh, so all three towns, one report. I think it'd be suffice. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Beatty.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was going to bring up item CW53 because it referenced the Tottenham parking situation and the downtown situation quite extensively. And I wondered if we were jumping the gun with this motion, given that there was an extensive report further down the agenda. But given that Councillor McClellan raised the issues in Beaton and certainly Alliston as well, and the CAO's remarks, I'm fully supportive of doing a townwide parking study. Absolutely. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Worship. When we do these types of studies, we do have a cash in lieu of parking account. I think it's a reserve account. Part of the report could include what's in and what we can expect with applications on the books. That would be helpful. And I'm not sure where we get the money for the study. Perhaps the CAO could suggest that course of action.
I'll go to Lori.
Oh,
Ms.
thank
Becker.
you.
Councillor Sainsbury, sorry, I was momentarily distracted. Could you repeat that question?
Yes, the cash in lieu of parkland reserve fund, what's in it when you do this report, include that in it, and any other funds that may be coming to us from applications on the books that would be finished, and where we get the funds to do this study, which reserve fund, or is this taxation? Thank you.
Through your work, Councillor Sainsbury, yes, we can certainly look into all of that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Beatty. I'm sorry, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to the CAO, will this study include solutions to the parking? I just worry that we do too many studies and we don't necessarily act on them. So will this study include solutions for the three downtown areas that can be implemented?
Okay, Mr. CAO.
Mayor Milne, through you to Councillor McClellan. Yes, absolutely what I would envision, and I'm certainly no parking expert, but what I would envision is to understand our current situation, the supply that we have, the demand that we would require going forward, and then, yes, identify different types of solutions to address that demand. as well as things like, and I've had discussions with a number of people with respect to the condition of our various parking assets throughout the various downtowns. So I would like to see it actually even roll into some aspects of asset management and how that we can ensure the condition of those parking areas are at the level that council would like to see.
Thank you. Councillor Noah?
Thank you, Worship. Since we expanded the parking study towards Allison, I was going to pull CW4 too, but I'll drop that now. And my question was in regards to the parking is the old beer store behind the main street in Allison. Maybe we can approach the owner and get some parking there. It would be great because the summer months are coming and the downtown core is a lot busier. So maybe we can approach him, and I'm sure he will agree with it as long as he gets some fun, or we can fix some potholes in the parking lot for him. So maybe we can approach him. Thank you.
The big one.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, moved by Councillor Lacey, second by, Councillor Jeff.
Sorry, I was not fast on the draw. While we're talking the whole town, we've got to also remember people that are parking on our back roads, on our county road, country roads, where the farm machinery is having to go. And I have two specific areas with trails and the BD Pinery where people are parking on the road and there's farm equipment trying to come up and down the road. So we should take that into that consideration as well. And I'll further discussion with the CAO.
Okay, thank you. Motion then moved by Councillor Lacey, second by Councillor McClellan. Whereas the town of New Tecumseth has been growing over the last number of years, and whereas availability of public parking within the town of New Tecumseth is very limited and does not accommodate the growth and has become a challenge for business. Now therefore be resolved that the staff be directed to bring forward a report to outline the history of the current parking configuration with the town of New Tecumseth with a plan to develop a short and long-term parking solution for the town of New Tecumseth for council's consideration. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. CW 14, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. I'd just like to point out a number of points actually, and some of the reasoning for my request for a review of the code of conduct for members of council. In 2019, this council passed a code of conduct. I'm going to review a few numbers. From 2014 to 2017, we had 0 code complaints. 2018, we had 3 code complaints for a total, and 3 of those were summarily dismissed by the Integrity Commissioner. In 2018 and 2019, we had 9 code complaints, a total of 9. 4 were filed by members, and 7 of the 9 were summarily dismissed. In 2020, we had a total of 9 complaints. 8 were code related. 1 was municipal conflict of interest, for a total of 9. 7 were filed by members of council, and 7 were summarily dismissed. That probably doesn't make a whole lot of noise to people, but if you go back to 2018, and our total paid to the Integrity Commissioner is $10,255. 2019, the total jumped to a staggering $59,136.34. In 2020, the number to date is $41,807.17. I know that's to date. This does not include any of the HST. So for a grand total, this council has spent about $110,000 on complaints. And of the 21 total complaints, 11 were filed by members against other members, and 17 complaints were summarily dismissed. If you go back to we have a code of conduct, and it has an informal process. And from my understanding, the informal process requires dialogue between members in order to resolve issues. That was not utilized in these examples. We have point of personal privilege, which if the members or to study up on the procedure bylaws. The point of personal privilege is a tool, a very effective tool if used properly, which allows members to deal with the conduct of other members directly at the council meeting. And it even allows for the council to have an immediate vote in order to reprimand a particular member of council immediately and be disbarred from the rest of that meeting if necessary. This tool on this council has never been used. So here we sit. I could go over 1,000 debates we've had about money. Let's look at some of the key items, because I think the most important thing to remember here is that this council has supported the hospital to the tune of $50,000 a year. Well, wouldn't it have been nice if we could have supported them to the tune of $100,000 a year? But instead, we've committed $110,000 of resources to the Integrity Commissioner. There's a whole list of capital projects, which I'm going to save mentioning because I could spend an hour on this, but I only have 5 minutes, so respectfully, take $110,000 and think of the capital projects that could be utilized in our parks, in our roads, in our sidewalks, planting trees, you name it. 1,000 different examples. So while I'm not casting aspersions on any one individual, as a council, I'm a member of this council, and so I own this as well. I personally have not filed any formal complaints against any members, but I want this to be brought up because the importance of civility at the council and how we behave outside of council is paramount. And when I sit and look at these numbers, I, as a member of council, am wholeheartedly embarrassed. And we've done this. So I implore every member of the council to conduct themselves properly, to have the ability to go out and speak to Mr. Mascarin at any time and get a written opinion on where your conflicts of interest are. And if you have any questions understanding the code of conduct, you certainly have that ability as well. So I simply want to raise this. And the reason I'm asking for a review of the conduct for members is there a way that we can simplify this? Is there a way that we can expand the informal process? Is there a way that we can educate ourselves better so that we have the remaining 2 years of this council as a civilized, as intelligent debate, as respectful debate amongst each other, so that this number does not climb $1 higher than what it is today. Respectfully to all my fellow members, hope I've not gone on too long.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. Something when I was reading the Clearview motion about the freedom of information, there was one paragraph that stood out and I thought I may point out. The paragraph in that is, and whereas the name of the requester is not permitted to be disclosed, anyone other than the person processing the access request. And this anonymity is used by requesters to abuse the MFI PPA process and does not align with the spirit of openness and transparency embraced by municipalities. I would argue that anonymity is allowing members of this council to weaponize the office of the Integrity Commissioner. And as being the one that is most often targeted, I would suggest that when councillors are going after other councillors, it would significantly reduce the amounts of complaints the Integrity Commissioner receives if we were required to put our name on them. And I think that should be considered. I'm not sure if there's a statutory requirement there or not, but I think that would go a long way in absolutely reducing the amount of complaints that are put in. And I'd like staff to at least consider that option when looking into the code. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foster.
I would just like to add one further comment is there's two sides to this. There's the side of the conduct of the council. There's the side of the complaint process. So may we please look at everything equally, understand that it takes two to tango. So let's all please keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I just have an idea.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. if it's permitted under the act and through the code and so on, that we're going to have studied and a report back, I assume, asking the province to amend some of these things. When they have LPAT hearings, they have a preliminary hearing. If something has come to light and we have a concern with it, can we not have an in-camera meeting to discuss the concerns we're having before it goes too far and starts costing a ton of money? Is that a possible step that could be discussed when staff are working on this item
That's
4?
fine. We'll have staff consider that too. All this.
Thank you.
And if there's any other information you want staff to look at when you get home or you think about it tomorrow, just send it to Blaine.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I have a motion then moved by Councillor Foster, looking for a second here. Whereas the code of conduct for members of council and local board policy was adopted by council on April 1st, 2019. Whereas the policy provides for both informal and formal complaints procedures, which can be both erroneous and time consuming for the complainant and the member of council involved. Now therefore be resolved that staff be directed to review the current complaint procedure with the code of conduct for members of council and local board policies and bring forward a recommendation to create a more streamlined, effective, and less onerous process. We have a seconder. Councillor McClellan, questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Okay, motion is carried. CW5 and Councillor Foster and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Is there any comments from the public on this before I?
Yes, we have a few. Did you want the public in? Sorry.
Yeah, I'd be happy to yield my time to the public first, if that's fine.
Okay. Our first gentleman is Martin Field. Martin.
Yes, hello?
Yes, Martin?
Yes, I'm here, yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We just can't find you, that's all.
I apologize. I did have some, hang on. I do apologize. I have some difficulty here. Am I okay to speak now?
Yes, we can hear you, Martin. That's fine.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. My name is Martin Field. I head up a group that's based on Facebook with about 8,500 members. The group is called Pause for Ontario, otherwise known as Pet Adoption as a Working Solution for Ontario. Among things we advocate before municipalities is what is before us today, and that is the selling of pets and in pet shops that are sourced from puppy mills and other unethical breeders in general. It's literally a quagmire out there because there's such a legal vacuum regarding the lack of regulation of the breeding of dogs that is a genuine concern, especially when the pet shop is repeatedly selling unethically sourced animals, and that the consumer is the victim, because often they face thousands of dollars in veterinary bills because they have sourced an unhealthy puppy, and that there was basically no recourse for them. they're fearful of knowing what the fate of that puppy could be. A lot of these operations are strictly for profit. What separates a genuine breeder would be that the breeder would meet face to face with the client, and it would give the breeder an opportunity to assess if the client is suitable for the puppy and if it's going to an appropriate environment to meet the care needs of that dog. And often that breeder will actually visit the home. They have a long-term commitment in ensuring the viability of the breed, the purity of the breed, and will often do a lot more careful checks to make sure the breed is sustained appropriately and there's no defective, there's no the breeding cycle. So therefore, even the CKC has had instances where there have been found unethical breeders. As I say, there is a lack of policing from the CKC's perspective. So it's literally bearer beware out there. And the pet shop, they were formerly in Richmond Hill. We established a bylaw there where they could source pets. They then moved to Newmarket. We established a similar bylaw there, and now they're in Alliston. They joined the council sessions that we attended, delegated before. They never provided any paperwork or proof as to where they sourced their animals. It was just smoke and mirrors, a lot of emotion from their part. So I'm asking that council and the committee will take this matter with the gravity that is due. I can't emphasize enough that there's such a legal vacuum and that puppy mills are fully exploiting this. And it's to the detriment of the consumer because they are faced, as I mentioned before, with huge veterinary bills and there's no recourse. Should council initiate such a bylaw or an amendment addition to the Business Licensing Act bylaw, I don't see there would be any financial cost to the municipality because the public will be the first to report any transgressions. And I believe there's been a strong outpouring of concern in this matter from the community. So what we do recommend is that they only source from the Humane Society, approved community rescue groups and the municipal shelter. So they act as almost like a satellite adoption centre. PetSmart and Pet Value, they often do that and are seen as part of the solution. That gains a stronger loyalty, in my view, between the public and the pet shop. So I just want to put an end to these puppies that are being sold at an extraordinary amount of money nowadays, especially since COVID has entered the whole equation. So it's profiteering. It's unrestrained profiteering at the expense of the consumer. And those consumers are people that you represent in your business and your community. So I do strongly urge you to adopt those sourcing provisions and also additional provisions about the care of the animals in a pet shop other animals while they're in there. So they're ensured that they have the right environment. There's no excessive heat, no excessive light. They're in separate cages. They are they have access to water and are fed, and a lot of other conditions regarding the size of the cage and the size of the mesh that they have to stand on. So I'd recommend additional provisions. I believe you're in receipt of a sample bylaw from City of Oakville and also I believe it was Windsor. They serve as very good examples, in my opinion.
You have 30 seconds, Martin. Martin, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, that concludes everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, our next speaker is Jane Clark.
What about questions to Martin?
Questions in there. Can you stay on, Martin? We have a question from Councillor Sainsbury.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Fields. You mentioned there was no paperwork, so I guess we don't know if they're legal or illegal. And have any of this particular person that has come to Alliston, was anything proven in the courts in Mississauga, Newmarket, Richmond Hill, the other towns they've been in? Or is this factual, I guess is what I'm saying, or are we just totally concerned because we love pets?
There's an absence of paperwork generally and veterinary records. Also, a good responsible person, like the CKC, they instruct their members not to sell through pet shops.
Thank you.
A good responsible breeder would want to meet face to face. I don't like the whole idea of them being sold through a retail second party operation or business. We're talking about sentient beings here, as opposed to items that you could pick up from a building store or something to that effect. It's the absence. When they've delegated this particular pet store, they have not furnished any proof that their animals are sourced from sources that can be verified, so that we could actually visit those sources.
But I think my question, then I'll end it because other people wish to speak. Yeah, that nothing to your knowledge has been proven in the courts at this point in time that our bylaw officer could check out.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Jane. Thanks very much, Martin. I'll ask Jane Clark from the Alliston District Humane Society. Jane? Is she not? Okay, well, if she does come in, just I'll go then to council. Then the deputy mayor was one brought this motion forward, and
thank you, Your Worship.
Councilor Foster, I got you too.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to start by letting everybody know this was brought to my attention last Thursday by residents in regards to the new pet store selling animals. I want to thank everybody that took the time and the efforts to reach out, not only to myself, but I know they reached out to all members of council. And they did a lot of research too in pulling bylaws from our municipalities and sending it to us, and did a lot of homework. So I think it's imperative that we acknowledge that this is a great working relationship between council and our residents. And if we communicate, we can act on stuff, rather quickly. So I just wanted to say thank you. And also point out that New Tecumseth currently does not have a bylaw in place to control or regulate these types of businesses. And we definitely need one. We need a very strong focus on the care and control of these animals, their health, welfare, and living conditions. They're an extreme concern, in my opinion, to everybody. So once again, thank you to all the individuals that have reached out. And I just want to share with council, I did review some of the bylaws that were sent to me. And I don't want to make this an onerous task for our clerk's department because I think it's quite important that we do this as quickly as possible. I was quite impressed with new markets, so I thought I would share that with staff, Your Worship. And of course, if any other members of council want to add anything to this motion, I would certainly encourage them to do so. I just wanted to get the ball rolling with this, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor Foster, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Just to add a couple of things. This morning, actually, interestingly enough, we council received a copy of a letter and a Pet Friends puppy contract from the owners of Pet Friends. And when you read it, you make note of a couple of interesting comments, but I would like to point out a couple of important ones. It references, and I'm quoting directly from their letter, it says, "Our puppies come from breeders." And to Mr. Field's comment with regards to the Code of Practice for the Canadian Kennel Club member breeders, it's a 3-page document. And if you were to go to section 3 under general responsibilities, subsection G, it states, "No breeder shall sell or donate dogs for the purpose of their being auctioned, raffled, or to pet stores." So one question comes to mind is, you come from, their puppies, as stated by these individuals, come from breeders. Well, the one thing we would know from the Code of Practice for the Canadian Kennel Club is that those breeders are not members of the Canadian Kennel Club because they are prohibited by the Code of Practice for selling puppies to pet stores. So on the surface, that needs to be further investigated. There's a number of other contents, and I had a long discussion today with Mr. Glanville, and I pointed out a number of things that I would believe to be inconsistent. And I think it all comes down to the fundamental bottom line of how we treat our most vulnerable citizens and our animals is indicative of the kind of society that we have. And I think without question, a bylaw that simply offers provisions to make sure that the source of the animals is from a reputable breeder is at its very basic level something that I can't imagine any of my fellow councillors would be opposed to. So I, for one, fully support this motion by Deputy Mayor Norcross. And the only thing I would add to it is it be time sensitive, and that in the interest of the welfare of the animals and ensuring that everything is kosher, that it have a time issue attached to it. Thank you.
Thank you. I see we got Jane on.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jane.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, thanks very much for giving me a few minutes, Mayor Milne and Council. I'm Jane Clark, and I'm Vice President of Alliston and District Humane Society. As I would hope most of you know, ADHS has been working in these communities for about 33 years. We were originally a foster-based organization, but in 2010, we opened our shelter. We are no-kill. We are 100% run by volunteers. And we deal with about 1,000 animals a year that have been abandoned or neglected or surrendered, in addition to working as the pound for 3 municipalities and canine control for 1. ADHS strongly supports Deputy Mayor Norcross's motion to investigate and pass a bylaw regulating pet shops in New Tecumseh. I think that ADHS is in a unique position to comment on this motion because of our longevity in this community and to assist New Tecumseh staff should this motion pass tonight. So here's why. First, ADHS has had a good relationship with any number of pet stores across this area and even as far away as Angus, Bolton, and Aurora for many years. We strongly believe that your bylaw should state that live animals in New Tecumseh pet stores must come from municipal pounds, humane societies, and reputable rescues. I just like to shout out here to Pet Value Alliston, who is a model of responsible and community-minded pet store. And they bring in only live animals for adoption from reputable rescues. Deputy Mayor Norcross references reputable breeders' puppies in pet stores. Breeders don't use pet stores generally. because they don't have to. They have long wait lists for their puppies and they do not overbreed. The Canadian Kennel Club members will have their membership revoked if they're caught selling puppies in pet stores. This is against their constitution and bylaws. Pet stores and reputable breeders are really not the issue. So what is the issue? The issue is, where are these animals coming from? I think we all know that what a puppy mill is and a backyard breeder is, and the evidence is out there clearly about the conditions that these animals are raised in. ADHS has taken dogs in particular from backyard breeders and from puppy mills when we've been asked to go in and take a look. We also have an awful lot of experience of finding female dogs on the side of the road or in the ditch where they've been abandoned after they are too old to breed. By the time we get to the vet, you see significant health problems and you see things like prolapsed uteruses and all kinds of stress. Humane Canada, of which we are a member, is currently circulating a petition on a motion brought by a Liberal MP to ban puppy mills in Canada once and for all. That will be coming to the Canadian Parliament in the middle of March. ADHS also sees animals bought from pet stores being abandoned or surrendered to us when health problems kick in or interest wanes. This includes hamsters, guinea pigs, turtles, and even kittens and puppies. Purchases are made on impulse in pet stores that do sell as opposed to offer for adoption animals. And some people have no idea what the animal needs to thrive, the costs of their care, and we do see all kinds of surrenders of rabbits around Easter time as a good example. The animal advocacy group Pause for Ontario has clearly documented the issues with the new pet store in Alliston and its frequent moves. I'm not going to comment on that because it's not in our area of expertise. What I would urge New Tecumseh to do is to follow the lead of other progressive municipalities that have controlled this issue by passing a bylaw limiting live animals in pet stores to those sourced from humane societies, municipal pounds, and reputable sources, rescues. This is not just an animal welfare issue. It's a consumer protection issue as well. 62% of Canadians own pets, and by the time we get through this pandemic, it's going to be much higher. You've got a lot of people that are isolated, lonely, and they're searching for the comfort pets can bring. Unsuspecting citizens buying from a pet store at huge prices have no health or provenance guarantees. They deserve better. So should this motion pass, ADHS would be happy to assist New Tecumseh staff in any way that they can. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Jane. Appreciate it. As a strong member of your organization, actually, we got a four-legged friend at home that we got from his beautiful animal. Questions to Jane. Councillor Foster. You're on mute, Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Through you to Jane Clark. I would echo the sentiment to the mayor. What you do at the shelter is remarkable work. So keep up the good work. This is more of a comment, and I think it's been made, is that you seem to see a lot of people referring to the business model, and I think you touched on pet value. I think it's important to note that if the business model of your store is the sale of puppies, then clearly you're doing it wrong. And the business model is definitely food, it's toys, and for those of us that love our pets, we spend an awful pile of money on toys from stores like Pet Value. So I think that's important to recognize, that we should not be dissuaded by any sort of comments or whatever that suggest that selling of puppies or animals is a for-profit business. The business model is clearly established by other organizations and reputable companies, is that it works without utilizing the funds from those sales as part of your business model. So just a comment.
Councillor McClellan,
Yeah, thank you, Worship. It wasn't a question, it was more so a comment. I too was sent the Newmarket bylaws. There's a lot of good bylaws out of there. Newmarket, Richmond Hill, Brampton, Orangeville, and as one of the speakers mentioned tonight, Oakville and Windsor. I think it's very important to use this specific wording, and I think Ms. Clark mentioned this in the bylaw, in Newmarket's bylaw specifically. It says that they only permit cats or dogs within the pet store for the purpose of sale that come from municipal animal shelters, registered humane societies, registered shelters, or a recognized animal rescue group. And I think just the mere fact that we have all those places, and those places are run by volunteers, and those places are busy and do such good work, just proves that we need to put this into place to protect the animals, because no doubt their numbers would go up with animal intakes if every pet store did what this pet store is doing. And I think it's very important that we protect the puppies and protect the consumers, and we dig into this bylaw and make it happen as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCown. Councilor Noah?
Thank you, Worship. I was just reading over the motion. I'll ask Deputy Mayor if he can include in his motion that on the last paragraph, refer that the bylaw to include the provision that pet stores are only permitted to sell animals. Dogs, cats, and rabbits are not permitted to be sold. If we can word that in there somehow, I think that would be covered in order to, until we get a bylaw established. So if he's willing to do that, I'm asking the Deputy Mayor, please.
Deputy Mayor?
Absolutely, Your Worship. I was looking for council input tonight and also input from members of the public. And I want to thank Jane very much for taking the time to come here. Your wisdom is infinite. So yes, whatever we can do to and put teeth in this bylaw and make sure it's going to do exactly what we want it to do and make sure that it's effective. Absolutely. And any other suggestions that want to come forward from council. As I said earlier, I read the Newmarket bylaw. I've read a few of them. I was really leaning towards the Newmarket one. I thought they had done a really good job on that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Jane?
Yes.
The Newmarket bylaw?
Yeah, it sounds good. I haven't seen it per se, but what the portion that the councillor read sounds very good. And I would urge you to make it, not to grandfather it, to make it retroactive or to move to this kind of a model as fast as this township can.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jane. Councillor Jabin and Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jane just touched on a question that I had, but I spoke with the president, Ernie Ogle, last night, and he said that Humane Society is quite willing to help with any information input into this bylaw. So he's quite open to be contacted, and as well, Jane is the vice president. But my question is, if we get a bylaw in place and we already have a store that's open, can we put it retroactive to before they opened? That's a question, because I know when bylaw goes in with certain things, people are still allowed to continue on until they go to court. So that was a question I have that could maybe be brought back at the next meeting.
Yeah. All right, Councillor Jab, we just talked here, and we're gonna ask. I can't hear you. All right, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Feely, are you still on with us?
Never left.
Monday night fun.
You can pass a regulatory bylaw that will be effective once it's approved. Grandfathering is more a zoning issue. If you've got something that's a legal use and then you pass a bylaw that would prevent it, it would have legal non-conforming use. But if a bylaw is regulatory in nature as opposed to prohibitive, you're okay, you should be okay to enforce.
Good. Thanks, Jay.
Does that help?
That's great. Councillor Sainsbury.
My question is through you to our solicitor, Mr. Feely. One of the paragraphs says, and further, the bylaw include regulations with regard to appropriate living conditions and so on. So if can we have a licensing process, because these are live creatures, and then it would be a permitted use. They'd have to come to the town, and there would be an inspection of the building as it relates to building code issues or fire code issues. Is there a sequence we can go through in our bylaws so that similar to taxis, you have to be licensed and have a bit of a history that can be put into writing and left with the zoning bylaw department?
Okay, Mr. Feely.
You can apply, we have a licensing bylaw and you can apply that, you can extend that licensing bylaw to this particular use if you so choose. I'm not familiar with this type of a bylaw. I haven't, because we hadn't had any experience with it. You may want to license, you may just want to have a standalone bylaw. What you will do is what's the most effective way to enforce. We would have to look at it, but one way or the other, you could include licensing provisions. It may not be your best avenue of going, but it might be. It might be depending on the context. We would just have to have a look at what the process is. But you can do it. The issue is just what's going to be the most effective thing from council's point of view, and we would be able to tell you that.
Good, thank you.
So do we have, my second supplementary to the lawyer, if I may, do we have to amend our bylaw then because of adding something like this to it? Because right now, without a bylaw, they just lease the building and move in. So how can we go through a process where they have to come to the town, similar to Health Canada doing things?
Well, licensing would be prospective. If you pass a licensing bylaw, then to whatever activity that applies, you would then require them to take out a license.
So that could be part of the report. Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I think something that was in most of the bylaws that I read, I think I looked over 3 or 4 of them, was that they were licensed and that they also had yearly inspections to cover things like how where the animals sleep and where they stay, and that they have adequate everything. And I believe in most of the bylaws that I read, those yearly inspections were done by the bylaw department. So I think that should be incorporated into it as well. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Jeff.
Could be done by bylaw, or I was thinking of veterinarian, that it's at the expense of the store owner, but we choose the vet to do the inspection. So that would be another option too.
I apologize, Councillor Jeb. I had to get off mute for a second.
What we could do is change the one paragraph to that address bring forward.
Yeah. Can you do that while I take questions? Good. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's really important that we get this bylaw written and passed as soon as possible. Licensing is always something that we can look at after when we have the bylaw in place, and it can be done sort of separately, so it doesn't make the process even longer. If we just stick to getting a proper bylaw in place, once that's established, we can move on to possibly looking at licensing. Would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Good suggestion too. Any other questions? I don't know about council, but I've never received so many emails since last Thursday. Jane, you got the team working out there.
We have 150 to 170 volunteers.
Well, I got
a
it.
lot, and they work very hard, and they don't want to see what's going on downtown.
No, they do.
That's all I can say. I'm not sure why you would consider licensing without some investigation of the provenance of the animals, and that you have a reputable person. And I'm talking humane societies, municipal pounds, and reputable rescues.
Yes.
Right? Only.
Yeah, good. Okay, Madam Clerk, Councillor Sainsbury.
I just threw you to Jane, if I may. Is there some way that you could be the spokesperson instead of 152 emails? And you would represent, they would email you and you would tell us how many you have on the list. I couldn't figure out where they were all coming from, or if they read the Herald newspaper or something. And
the Pause for Ontario group is,
yes.
The Pause for Ontario group has had a lot of, they're an advocacy group, and they've had a lot of impact on this issue, and they sent out their material and that went all over. So it isn't just our volunteers. There's a lot of concern about this. Everybody knows what puppy mills are about and backyard breeders. And that's the concern.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
just the
think
robo.
this council is 100% support of whatever we can do to get rid of those backyards and puppy mills. It's terrible that people will make money off of things like that. Madam Clerk, are you making out?
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So the motion, whereas retail pet stores sell a variety of items, including food, toys, and animals, and whereas living conditions of these animals within the pet stores are sometimes questionable, and whereas the animals purchased from pet stores often do not include records with regard to their health condition and origin. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to bring forward a draft pet shop licensing bylaw to strengthen the protections of animals sold within pet stores for council consideration. And further, that the bylaw include regulations with regard to appropriate living conditions, number of animals permitted to be housed at one time, and adequate paperwork to confirm their health and origin in yearly inspections. And further, that the bylaw includes the provision that pet stores are only permitted to sell animals from registered breeders, municipal animal pounds, registered humane societies, and reputable animal rescues. And further, that pet stores not be permitted to sell animals in the town of New Tecumseth, including puppies, dogs, kittens, cats, rabbits, gerbils, and/or hamsters until a bylaw has been enacted.
Good, thank you. And this was moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Foster. Question, Councillor McClellan?
Thank you, Worship. I think it would be better if we just took the word breeder out of it completely and just stuck to municipal animal shelters, registered humane societies, registered shelters, or recognized animal rescue group. And because as we've heard from different sources here today, breeders don't do this. They don't sell through pet stores. They certainly don't send almost 40 puppies into a store to be sold for thousands and thousands of dollars. So I think we should take the word breeder right out of the motion if Deputy Mayor so agrees. Thank you.
Could I just make one point here?
Yes, Jane?
Yeah, pet stores that have in them animals from humane societies, municipal pounds, or rescue animals, they are not selling those animals. They are in that store so that the organization can adopt them out to people. They provide full documentation, vet care, after adoption care, and so on. So it's just a little inaccurate to say that they're selling, like Pet Value takes our cats, one cat at a time. They are not selling that cat. We deal with any potential adopters. They're basically just giving us a venue to advertise animals for adoption. Sale isn't quite accurate.
Supplementary, Councillor McClellan?
I just thought we could take out the word sell and say assist with adoption.
Yes.
Which would make sense, I think, in this situation.
Okay, Councillor Foster? Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I can withdraw my ask. Ms. Clark answered what I was looking at, so thank you very much.
Okay. And I'm getting that echo again. Good. I know our bylaw officers have been working on this. And I understand Chris is still. Chris, did you want to make a comment before we call the motion?
Good evening, Mayor Mill and members of committee. Thanks for the opportunity. There's been a lot of good work here. I want to say, like the best practices that are out there are available. So I think there's a good start in terms of what we've got to look for. So I appreciate all the information and no concern. Thank you.
Good, thanks, Chris. Okay, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Or question from Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I also want to say thank you, Your Worship, for your help in making sure we got this on the agenda in the time frame that we did, so we could deal with it as quick as possible. Thank you.
Yes, I second that. Thanks.
Well, I was threatened by my wife if I didn't, so that was wonderful. So all in favor of the motion? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. Thanks for your input. We will be talking again.
Great, thank you.
Next one is CW41 and Councillor Sainsbury and Councillor Noah.
I think it was just myself, your worship. I don't know if Councillor Sainsbury had anything to do with it.
No, I
It's,
pulled 4-3.
Yeah, it's just a question. I was going through the Municipal Asset Management Program report, and it says we can receive a grant up to $50,000. And we've been awarded, down under the background, it says we have been awarded $50,000 from this program to support salaries in 2021. Does the money we receive have to go towards salaries, or can we put it someplace else within the watering system? That's my question.
Okay, I'll go to Lori Bedford.
Through your mayor to Councillor Noy, when we apply for the grant funding, we have to specifically identify what we're applying for. And in this case, we are specifically applying for condition assessments. So it will not go towards salaries, this grant. In the previous grant that we received, we indicated that we would apply it towards both salaries and towards the asset management, a component of the asset management software we implemented. But to answer your question, it will not be going against salaries if we were awarded this grant.
Okay. I have a motion moved by Councillor Noy, second by Councillor Sainsbury, that further the staff be directed to apply for a grant from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Municipal Asset Management Program, to offset the cost for conditions, assessments of the water, wastewater, and facility assets within the town. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. And I believe it's CW43, but I didn't know who pulled it.
I did.
Oh, okay. There you go. Councillor Sainsbury.
Yeah. No, I was just going to give a gentle reminder that council last year, we had some discussion with the people who own our golf courses, which is not necessarily development because they've been with us a long time. But I think it's just a good thing to let them know, perhaps through our website, that they are allowed to start at 6 a.m. on the golf courses that are within the town of New Tecumseh, which is separate, I believe, from the development noise bylaw, which starts at 7.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Sainsbury, second by Councillor Jebb. The noise bylaw review, improve compliance, enforcement, and integration and with development agreements updated. That report admin 2021 be received. All in favor? Thank you. Passed. Next one is CW54. Okay. Okay, CW54, and do we have Carolyn Baker? Oh, there's Carolyn.
To the mayor,
Welcome.
members of committee, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'll certainly be brief. I know we've had the opportunity to review the subject zone change and proposed development before committee this evening. I did just want to provide an update that further to the last committee meeting, the building renderings have been updated and I believe have been circulated to the committee, which added more heritage elements, including the buildings being entirely clad in brick, additional window detail, bay projections, and roof lines. And I really just wanted to be here to answer any questions this evening and looking forward to moving forward on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Any questions to the speaker? All right, thank you. Ian Logan. Ian?
Could Mr. Park speak first?
I didn't know if he'd be up at this time. Go ahead, Ken.
I'll try to stay awake. Mayor Milne, Deputy Mayor Norcross, and councilors, thank you again for the opportunity to speak. We have read the updated report and make the following comments. First and foremost, we do not agree with many of the statements made in the document. We do not believe the proposed structure is compatible with the area. We do not conclude the massing or height is appropriate. We do not believe the new buildings and additions are designed in a manner that is sensitive to the location, massing, and height of adjacent buildings. And we do not believe significant views and vistas, which help define a residential neighborhood, are being preserved. We note under the heading of design that the units are set back appropriately from the street in keeping with established building lines in the area. The area homes are mixed in setback from the street, and this is typical of older neighborhoods, and that is why they're unique in comparison to today's standard developments. This type of mixed setback in established neighborhoods was referenced as being unique in the policy paper Places to Grow that was published a number of years ago. And just to give you an example, 27 Mill Street is set back from the street. Our house at 31 is set closer to the street, and Mr. Logan's property next to us is set back. So it's definitely mixed. So I'm not too sure where that statement's coming from. And it says the proposed development is generally compatible with the building heights and lot coverage of the surrounding properties. That statement, in our opinion, is just obviously false. I've mentioned this many times before that the land height between our property and 27 Mill Street is approximately 3 feet. That differential will be magnified when a massive wall is built next to us along our driveway, a part of a home that's a major living area. This is not the case in a new subdivision. Walls between the homes are basically unused dead space. We had mentioned this previously. There's been no attempt whatsoever to recognize this. We feel quite strongly that this is just the wrong project for this area. We feel even stronger now that our concerns are not being heard and addressed. To this point, I would like to draw your attention to a recent case that was resolved at LPAT last March. And to be upfront, I note that Ms. Baker had some involvement in this case. And it's not, I don't bring the case forward because Ms. Baker had some involvement. That's just happenstance. And I'm sure if another developer, not a developer, a planner, a professional planner was involved, the same type of comments would have been made. And it was a case in Stratford, Ontario. I was researching cases that dealt with heritage and infill. Many of you know what a beautiful town Stratford is, and you may also have read about a unique building in the town referred to as the White House. It was built in the 1820s as a large statuesque Victorian home. Sometime later, a new owner redesigned the home to mirror the look of the US presidential home. Today, it sits in disrepair with a developer's plan to bring it back to life. The property itself is quite similar to 27 Mill Street. It is a large corner lot. A property of the rear has been severed, as was the case at 27 Mill, and the developer applied to several lots to the other side of the property. I had noticed that it was an individual, a Mr. Patrick O'Rourke, that appealed the decision of the Committee of Adjustments, and that caught my interest. The tribunal heard from Carolyn Baker, who was called by the applicant. Ms. Baker commented on the minutes of the settlement and advised the tribunal that it was her opinion that the new residential lot will provide additional housing for the residents, and the settlement satisfied the very legitimate concerns of Mr. O'Rourke and complies with, and then there was a number of things. Given that statement, very legitimate concerns of Mr. O'Rourke, I could not understand if his concerns were so obvious, why did he have to file an appeal? I contacted Mr. O'Rourke and indicated my interest in the case and asked him why he had to object. I further learned that Mr. O'Rourke had a background in law. He's a retired lawyer, and he is chair of the Heritage Stratford Committee. He basically told me he and his neighbors' concerns were not being heard at the local level for reasons he has never understood. The management report from the City Planning Department that summarized the Heritage Act stated there were no adverse impacts. The severance was passed and Mr. O'Rourke took the issue forward to LPAT. It was only there that his concerns were considered legitimate and real, and that is just how we feel. The village of Tottenham was just that, a small, compact village. It encompassed a few blocks and has very little left of its heritage it once had. We have lost within recent times an original 1800s hotel and a 1900 mill that we lost both to fire. The area has been overtaken by development. That development continues today. We all agree that this is progress and necessary to provide housing for a growing population. There is, however, no necessity to dramatically change the nature of this neighborhood. The proposal will not complement the area, but rather overtake its current character. In closing, we'd just like to say that the words of the town's official plan are not our words. They would have been guided by a well-priced consultant, commented on by the planning department, and signed off by council. The statements under infill in established residential neighborhoods must have been consciously considered and should be applied in fact cases where appropriate. This is one of those appropriate cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Questions to Councillor Sainsbury? You're mute.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, through you to the gentleman who just spoke. The home that he was referring to, I think he mentioned the White House. Anyway, was it in a heritage district and was it designated?
I'm sure I'll comment, but I'm sure Ms. Baker, if I misspeak, she has some knowledge of this property. But the property itself is not a heritage property. The lot that was severed is not a heritage property. And the lot that has recently been severed is not a heritage property. But Mr. Patrick O'Rourke's house is a heritage property, and it is in a heritage area. But that's not my reason why I brought that case forward. It was the fact that Mr. O'Rourke, who has very articulate, have lots of knowledge with respect to heritage, chairs the heritage committee, yet the planning department ignored him. That's why I brought it forward, and that's how we feel.
Thank you. And I have one question, if I may, Your Worship, through to Caroline. I just want to know from Ms. Baker if the east side of this dwelling is identical to the west side at Forestall. Will those peaks and windows and so on be Mr. Park's view?
Caroline?
Yes, thank you for the comment, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Through the revised renderings, one component that we looked at with the architect was actually to reduce the number of windows on the second story elevation in order to minimize overlook and provide privacy. And just if you don't mind bearing with me for a moment, the case in Stratford, it's very familiar to me. I spent 5 years working on that project. And just at a clarification, the quotation from the decision are not my words. That was not my testimony as an expert land use planner. Those were the words of the LPAT member in being pleased that there was a settlement and he didn't have to go through a hearing that day. So I just want to provide that context and note there are a number of differences to that property. Not only is it in a different municipality, it was a different location, different size, different house attributes. So I just want to caution the parallels that are being drawn to a project that is not being vetted through this municipality or council. Thank you.
Well, if I may comment,
Go ahead.
Please, thank you. When I read, you should go back to the ministry then in the LPAT cases because it clearly says those are your words.
Okay.
Through the mayor, I'm not going to get in a protracted debate about an LPAT decision. I did follow up with the lawyer on this matter today, and he confirmed I'm correct in my assessment. I was the expert, and that was his opinion. So I think we should probably leave it at that since I was the only one in attendance.
Councillor Sainsbury.
Yes, it's through again to, I guess, Mr. Hoppy, if he's present.
Yes.
Thank you. Through you to the Director of Planning. Tonight we're establishing use. We still have site plan, don't we? Have further meetings on this to address this fence they were talking about and the slope in the land. And this is just use, is it not? And all we asked for tonight's meeting was a drawing that looked better than the original one with all the white aluminum on it. Is that correct?
Mr. Hoppy?
Through your worship to Councillor Sainsbury, yes, that's correct.
Good.
And my second question to the director is, I should have written it down. Just one moment, Your Worship, bear with me.
Okay,
I have quite a few notes here. I was wondering too, when you get to site plan, that's when you can talk about interlocking brick driveways instead of so many asphalt in the strip and that sort of thing. That's site plan. And also the fellow who would have the west yard gets to cut the most grass. We got to lighten this up a bit. It's our little town, you know. And the other thing that concerned me was that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and every single thing as it relates to the growth plan, Simcoe County official plan, our official plan, and that's really hard to I think it's different maybe than what went on in the other place that the first gentleman alluded to. I could be wrong, but I just think that it's different because all the houses along that road are different.
Okay, Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a few comments, and I'd like to actually put forward a motion. Number one, I'd like to thank everybody that spoke. Thank you, Mr. Parks, once again, and Mr. Logan. I always enjoy listening to you because you have a lot of knowledge and information to partake, and I appreciate your opinions. The second thing is, during our motion on the last meeting, the actual motion read, and further that staff be directed to work with the developer to address concerns related to the density of the housing, entrances on Mill Street, and bring forward additional options for the facade for the proposed housing development to meet the existing neighborhood. After all of this, the aspect of we've heard from the residents a number of times, and it's in my opinion that the development is not compatible with the housing in the area. I'd like to propose that we deny this application at this time.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll second that motion.
Oh, okay. Do we have anybody else? Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
I believe Mr. Logan still would like to speak.
All right, then we'll, Councillor Harrison McIntyre, no. Mr. Logan.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. I was on my knees just because I'm losing power here. So
okay,
if I go, that's probably what happened. Mayor Milne, Deputy Mayor Norcross, members of council, and ladies and gentlemen, tonight I speak again against the proposed development of 27 Mill Street East Development 399. We've been focusing on issues of traffic safety since we first learned of the proposed development. We spoke on issues of increased traffic volume, not only on Mill Street East, but Richmond, Wilson, Keogh streets as well. We spoke to pedestrian safety and the much increased pedestrian traffic using Mill Street to walk into town. We spoke of the number of children that use Mill not only to get to town, but to parks and school. We now better understand that many of these concerns are not dealt with by the traffic letter submitted in favor of this development. From our research, we find that a traffic letter is in no way a traffic impact study. A traffic impact study provides an in-depth analysis of all traffic issues applicable to a proposed development. By our reading of the JD Engineering traffic letter, paragraph 6, the writer states, the developer has retained JD Engineering Inc. to prepare this traffic letter in support of the proposed development. Further, as I read, the data used in this letter has been calculated based on 2016 TTS data for traffic zone 8663, end quote. Is that not stale dated? I can only assume that it is. And I say we now have the Brookfield and Ballymore developments to the east. So surely that data has increased. Why a full traffic impact study was not completed has us confused. We have looked at several guidelines in other jurisdictions, specific, I'm going to say tonight, City of Mississauga, where their guidelines would automatically call for a traffic impact study simply because a developer is asking for an amendment to the official plan or a zoning bylaw, or if in the opinion of the city, the development has the potential to create unacceptable adverse traffic or safety impacts on the roads. And the onus there is on the applicant to demonstrate a traffic impact study is not required. Nothing in the engineer's letter mentions that Tottenham United Church is directly across the street from the proposed development or addresses the loss of street parking for the church due to this development. There's no mention of a fire hall being in the same block with fire and ambulance services using this street. No mention of the Canadian Pacific level crossing is in the same block that on occasion will block the 5 driveways proposed in this development as traffic waits for a slow train to cross the level crossing. No mention of vehicle traffic skirting the main intersection, driving excess traffic onto Richmond, Forrestal, Wilson, and Dickerson streets. No mention of the right and left turns that are created at Mill, Forrestal, and Dickerson streets right in front of the proposed development. We bring to your attention the obvious safety contradictions that exist between this proposed development and the new Ballymore townhouses on Mill Street east of the tracks. There are at least 15 townhouses in sets of 5 facing Mill Street, but they cannot access Mill Street, but only through their own street, Clinton Street. They also have laybys for visitor and excess tenant parking. This was surely done with a purpose to control traffic, maintain safety, and provide for excess parking. Yet, in the older part of town, where roadways are narrower, street parking is central, and where sidewalk traffic has increased, the same criteria is not used. What is the rationale? I note that council asked at their last meeting that town staff work with the developer, and thank you, Councillor Lacey, for mentioning this, to address density, entrances, and facade of the proposed development. The developer has deferred to look at the density of this project. I remind council that this is how this all started. The developer is asking for an amendment to rezone with minor variances to maximize the density and footprint of this proposal. As I have read the town's own official plan, I read this reoccurring statement: to maintain and enhance the town's character. To maintain and enhance the town's character. This project, in my opinion, does not maintain and enhance the town's character. And as I conclude, I remind council that we do not speak on our own, but for 227 other residents who signed their objection to this project via the petition. If it were not for Corona-19 pandemic, I'm sure the council chamber would be filled this evening with many of those citizens opposing this development. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Ian. Questions to Councillor Sainsbury?
Through you to the, I'm not sure if it's the town engineer or Mr. Hoppy. The issues as it relates to traffic, that's something the town has to undertake, but it has nothing to do with the use, except for the 5 driveways. And all I'm talking about is all those other streets that have been named that we had a map for, I believe, at the last meeting. It has to be addressed, but it's not, it isn't addressed at use time, and that's what I need clarified for everybody.
Mr. Hoppy?
Your Worship, I'm going to defer to Director Vatry to answer that, please.
Okay. Director Vatry?
Your Worship, to Councillor Sainsbury. Councillor Sainsbury is correct in the sense that the traffic in the area we looked at more as a townwide or a Tottenham type issue as opposed to a localized independent development. What we did say identify in the report that was sent to by Planning Forward is that again, a traffic impact letter was submitted, and as part of the site plan, a traffic impact study would be looked at that time. And again, a lot of the issues that are being raised tonight would likely be also addressed through the reconstruction of Mill Street, which will take place at some future date, and would help to alleviate some of those on-street parking issues and traffic flow issues. I trust that asks or answers the councillor's question.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Vestry.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Lacey, I think we have a motion draft up, and I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Okay, through your worship, motion moved by Councillor Lacey, second by Councillor McClellan. That the application for a zoning bylaw amendment by NAK Building Services Limited, care of Caroline Baker Planning Group for 27 Mill Street East, Community of Tottenham, be denied.
Councillor Lacey, is that okay? And Councillor McClellan?
Yep, that's, thank you.
Okay, any questions on the motion? All in favor? Oh, wait a minute. Councillor Harrison McIntyre. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering if this is denied, and maybe this is a question for our solicitor, what happens next?
Mr. Feely?
If you turn the application down, ultimately, then the developer will have the opportunity to appeal. If you approve it, then the onus will shift to the ratepayers to appeal. But the decision is appealable by either party, depending on what decision you make. Eventually, the other alternative is you make no decision, in which case then the developer can appeal a non-decision. And you're probably already within that time frame. But at this moment, you either you decide one way or decide the other. The other side will have the right to appeal.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Something about this is reminding me of other situations where we had developers who wanted to put in infill, and there was a lot of public outcry. And, the reports that we received from staff were in support of the applications for various reasons, but mostly because they fit with the provincial policies about density and infill. So my question again, back to through you, Your Worship, to GM Hoppy or to our solicitor is, what are we looking at? And maybe this is something that needs to be done in camera, but because the reports that we've received were all supportive from the staff's perspective, from a planning perspective, what are we looking at?
Director Hoppy.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Harrison McIntyre. Basically, the town staff position is that the applications are supportable when you take into consideration all of the planning instruments, the PPS, the county official plan, the town's OP, the growth plan. And on balance, staff analyzed all of those documents and came up with our recommendation. So if council chooses not to support the application and the developer does file an appeal, town staff could be subpoenaed as a witness to act and provide evidence in support of the proposal. The town solicitor would have the option of retaining a planning consultant to convey the opposite position. And I think that's the answer to your question.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yeah, sorry, there was a whole bunch of that I couldn't hear because there was the reverberation from Your Worship's mic still being on. So what I heard was that the planning staff would be subpoenaed. And then I think after that was a bunch of stuff I didn't hear. I guess, again, similar to the other project, would we be looking at having to hire an outside consultant as an expert to back us up against the proposal.
Through your worship to Councillor Harrison McIntyre, yes, I apologize for the town solicitor could retain an outside consultant to provide planning evidence in support of the council direction.
Okay. Councillor McClellan?
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to remind council that we are actually the planning authority in New Tecumseth, not the planning department. They give us their recommendations. They're not set in stone. It's not our job to rubber stamp every development approval or recommendation that comes from our staff. We are the planning authority.
Councillor Sainsbury and then Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've been down this road before where we are challenged and we go to the board, and we're hard pressed to find a planner who'll take something on where every agency, it fits the policies of every agency that we have to circulate to. And they don't want to take it on because they don't like to normally have losses on their record. So it's kind of a catch-22 as far as I'm concerned, and it's costly for everybody. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tongue in cheek, thank you, Councillor McClellan, for the reminder of our role. But I will also remind council that we are also meant to follow the policies that we have, and the policies that we have talk to infill housing and density. And while the opinion about whether this is compatible with the existing neighborhood, I think is more of an opinion, and one that I would not even go down that road. I think that I support the residents and their opinion. And I often come up against the opinion of planning and don't agree with what their opinions are about things that are characteristic or that are complementary. All that said, one of the priorities of this council has been the increasing of housing stock in the affordability market. And what they're proposing is rental housing. And as everybody on this council knows, we do not have enough rental housing stock. I'm not standing here advocating for this project one way or the other, but I do want to bring that to everyone's attention that we have to balance our role as councillors and elected politicians with leaders who are here to make the right choice for the larger community. And absolutely, the character of the buildings when they first brought them to us were pretty awful. And a lot of progress has been made. A lot of attempts have been made to improve the look of this. I've lived in all parts of areas of Toronto with heritage areas, the Annex and Cabbagetown, and those places have high density housing that is heritage. And so just having a lot of houses close together, townhouses, does not mean that the place is not heritage in nature. The best thing that we can do as a council is to create heritage districts that will help to protect areas of heritage value. And so let's move forward with this application and continue to work with the proponents to bring the building to as much character to make it as attractive as possible for this area. And at the same time, increase the affordable housing for this area.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan.
When this issue goes to vote, I'd like it to be recorded. Oh, wait, we're in committee. Sorry. Never mind. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else before I call the motion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed?
May I say something? It's Ken Parks.
Yes, Ken.
I'm just following up on this Harrison McIntyre's comments about rental housing. It was a very recent case that the town just went through the OMB to dispute the fact that an apartment complex was being proposed for the new development just to the east of us, and it was the town that chose to choose a grocery store over an apartment building. So rental housing can't be that important right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Back to the motion. Those opposed, show your cards again. 1, 2, 3.
Sorry, through your worship, I think there's a little confusion. So council
Yeah,
has
we need to
voted
do that.
on the, we had a motion from Councillor Lacey, second by Councillor McClellan, that the application be denied. That vote was taken, it was defeated. So then you would go back to the original motion.
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't called it. That's right.
Haven't called the motion on the first one. So we go back to the first motion. Those are opposed to the motion from Councillor Lacey. Show your card.
Can you repeat the motion? Sorry.
Sure we can.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, that the application for a zoning bylaw amendment by NAK Building Service Limited, care of Caroline Baker, Baker Planning Group for 27 Mill Street East, community of Tottenham, be denied.
Okay. Those are opposed. Okay. Okay. The motion doesn't carry, Councillor Lacey. Go back to the original motion. Look for mover and second that the report of PD 2021-12 be received, and further that a bylaw to enact amending zoning bylaw number 2014-126, subsequently in the form included as attachment number 1 to report of PD 2021-12. The mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Beatty, second by Councillor Noel. All in favor? How are you voting, Councillor Jeff? 1. You get 6 too? 6. Motion's carried. Thank you. Next is CW 55 and Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one small comment on this one, and I guess I should have caught it a little earlier. The Appendix B, which, and I'm just trying to find my page now. Appendix B regarding the area for, I'm trying to remember what name it was, Tottenham. I was wondering if we could expand that down to Brown Street on the south end. So this is the downtown core, I believe it was.
Okay. I'll go to Mr. Hoppy.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Lacey, we can certainly look into that. I do also want to point out Madeline Gibson is on the line, who authored a lot of this plan. So Madeline, if you have anything to add.
Welcome, Madeline.
Thank you. Certainly, that could be something that we look into. The reason why the boundary is the way that it is, it's to reflect the historic downtown of Tottenham. And it wasn't expanded to any of the newer sort of commercial developments. That's the same that goes for Beaton and Alliston. But if that's council's wish, we can certainly look into it.
The reason why I mention that is because there are a number of more historic looking houses south of which I think is William Rowe. Is it William Rowe? One of the streets. Anyway, it's south of there, but north of Brown. So it's just kind of like you're missing a little section other than the malls.
Okay. Councillor McClellan.
Here it is. Lionel Stone, yeah.
Yes, I guess my question was surrounding sort of, I'm looking at page 60, the delineated downtown areas, and I'm just wondering why it's not similar to the BIA catchment areas. And I heard Madeline say something about the historic downtown, but I guess these would be for like the sign grants and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, I'd like to see more of our businesses be able to participate in this program.
Councillor Beatty.
Thanks, Your Worship. A question through you to Madeline. Thanks for taking the time to create the report, Madeline. Lots of good information. There was a question I had on page 4 under comments and considerations. The bottom, you talk about how staff acknowledged council's request for staff to review the possibility of including some rural properties within the CIP project area, as well as the request to include the commercial development zoned rural highway commercial located at 9 and 27. Staff reviewed both of these requests closely and determined that this would require additional consultation and study. So my question is, what sort of additional consultation and study is required to do something like this? Is it onerous and costly, or is it something that we can simply agree to do as a council by way of a resolution? And I'll be vague for now, but I mean, it doesn't, the way it's designed now to capture the downtown catchment areas, it's like a downtown improvement plan. If you want to have a community improvement plan, CIP, expand it through the whole community, and that would encapsulate 9 and 27, Tottenham, and some of the other areas as well. So that's something I would put forward for consideration by us all as we go forward. But I'll wrap up my comments with my thanks to Madeline and everybody that's worked on this. It's a lot of really great information. It's a great program. It's been expanded, and there's lots of programs that are available to everybody, not just downtown businesses. So I would encourage everybody to check it out in the meantime. Job well done to Madeline, Bruce, and everybody on this. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Beatty. Was it Councillor Jebb? Did you have Councillor Foster? Councillor Jebb and then Councillor Foster.
Councillor Beatty just commented on the things that I had read too. Thinking about the Schaumburg area, the businesses down there, and some of our rural businesses, like setting up maybe, a marketplace or something. So it would be nice to find out how we could incorporate that as well.
Thank you.
And
Councillor
thanks to Madeline too.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. I would echo the sentiments of my fellow councillors. Very detailed report, Madeline. Lots of reading and very informative. I'd like to ask you some clarity on, there was some references that a council so desires delegated authority. So in other words, the assumption, I'm assuming that the assumption of the approval process, were you recommending, or were you just suggesting that we have the option to do that? And exactly to what extent were you referring to delegated authority, the entire process, and then just simply a report to council? If you could expand on your thoughts related to that, please.
Madeline.
Absolutely. Through you, Mayor. Councillor Foster, the addition of the delegation, the delegated authority is in the plan so that council has the option to consider that in the future should they wish. Currently, we don't have delegated authority for CIP applications right now, but it's something to explore, and how far council wants to go would be completely up to them. So really, delegated authority in the future could look like staff approving some of the smaller grants, so the signage grants, some of those grants that are $3,000 or less, maybe the heritage grant, and not having to go through the council process. That would mean that the applicants would get their grant money faster. Some of the larger projects that have more of a monetary value behind them, perhaps that's something that council wants to see. They want to see those proposals before they move forward. So it'll really be up to council and what you want to do in the future. It's just in the plan so that there is that option should staff and council wish to consider that.
Good. Thanks, Madeline. Councillor Foster.
Thank you. Supplementary. So the timing for that is in this draft report. You'll be looking for input back from council prior to the next meeting or sometime in the not too distant future. And then the second question I had was, I think everyone agrees that community improvement program is excellent, but if we are to expand the areas, I think it'd be important for council to understand, or at least get some input from the staff related to, as we expand, what do we think an appropriate number is? And is it a number that we're prepared as a council to put in next year's budget? Because it's fine to expand it. Now you're doubling the number of people applying, which essentially, with some of the grants, you could have 1 or 2 applications that could eat up the entire amount that's currently in there. So I think hand in hand with an expansion to cover the areas as mentioned by Councillor Jebb and Councillor Beattie, should certainly trigger a conversation related to the amount of money that we feel is appropriate for that. So that was just a comment.
Thank you. Madeline, did you want to respond?
Sure, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Foster. For the delegated authority, there's no need for council to consider it at this time. This plan is not set to come into effect until January 1st, 2022. And at that time, perhaps as the plan sort of carries out in that first year and staff and council get an understanding of which grants they might want to apply delegated authority to, then council can consider it at that time. In the plan, as you might have noticed, there is a requirement for staff to bring an annual report that goes over the success of the plan in the previous year, and which grants should proceed and which ones maybe are not necessary anymore. And at that time, staff can consider delegated authority.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Sainsbury? You got your mic.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's going to improve our downtown core, and it is an excellent report. I think too, maybe with the grants and how we're going to phase this in, we kind of have to walk before we run. And I'm hoping that we will do this review in 22 at budget time. But again, I think we're going to have to be cautious, because if we don't get grants and we've committed, then perhaps it's straight taxation. So it's something we're really going to have to watch budget-wise. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, a great discussion. Thanks again, Madeline. Great job. I have a motion moved by Councillor Lacey, second by Councillor Beattie, that a report of PD 2021-14 be received, and further that on a bylaw be enacted to repeal and replace bylaw 205-040, being the Downtown Community Improvement Plan bylaw with a proposed community improvement plan project area bylaw subsequently included as attachment number 1 to the report of PD 2021-14. And further that a bylaw be enacted to repeal and replace bylaw 2005-137, being the Downtown Community Improvement Plan bylaw with the proposed community improvement plan bylaw subsequently included as attachment number 2 to report of PD 2021-14. And further that the community improvement plan or CIP reserve fund per purpose to be adjusted to support future CIP budgets and assist with smoothing annual CIP program financial limitations, which will be funded through annual transfer of unspent CIP program funds and or dedicate contributions as determined by council through the annual budget process. Is Councillor Sainsbury? I've lost her on the screen.
Your Worship, I think she's hit her camera. Yeah, she shut off her video.
Okay. All in favor?
No, now it goes across the whole screen.
Okay. Are you in favor, Councillor Sainsbury?
She's in camera.
Our motion's carried. The next motion I have is CW 56, and I have a conflict of interest, and I ask the Deputy Mayor to take over. That's CW 56, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm off mute. Thank you. Item 5.6, award tender T21-08, supply of crushed granular road material. I have a recommendation. The report number PW2021-04 be received. Refer that tender number T21-08 be awarded to Dunvin Vorden College Limited for supply and delivery of crushed granular road material with a tendered price of $162,500 plus HST. And further that the Director of Public Works be authorized to expend the favorable variance to the upset limit of $24,639.89 to purchase additional granular material as required at the tendered unit prices. And further, the bylaw be enacted to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the appropriate documents respecting tender number T21-08. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Foster, second by Councillor Noy. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns before I call the vote? I am not seeing any. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Your Worship, I'll hand the podium back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I need a motion to go past 11 o'clock. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor McClellan, Councillor Sainsbury, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Mover and seconder that the Committee of the Whole convenes in closed session at Councillor Jeff.
10:57, Your Worship.
To items, verbal report of a CAO, unsolicited request to purchase portions of the NTRC lands. As per the Municipal Act, Section 239-2C, proposed or pending acquisitions or dispositions of land by the municipality or local board. All in favor? Okay, and we'll take a 5-minute while Pam moves us over. We're now in camera. Thank you.